Alright, welcome everyone to the Mech Workshop of never before seen in Faeria. Oh my god. And I'm joined by Mr. SuperBlizard, who is at peak performance of his day. And we're ready
I'm
to get
just getting started.
we're ready to get started. So
Yeah, thanks for
la
having me.
yeah, last time we did a monstrosity workshop. It was a little bit up in the air, a little bit messy because we weren't sure what we were doing, what the format we wanted to be. So we're a little bit more prepared. I say a little for this stream here, and we're gonna treat it a little bit more like a podcast than anything because I figure there's not a lot of there's no podcast streams for Faeria out there, so this might be something good to just listen to. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, there's a lot of visual representations in Faeria, but we'll try to explain it best we can, and format this towards a podcast. We'll see how it goes. Let us know what you think of it. So Mechs is a very tricky archetype, and I know a little bit about it, but Lizard definitely is going to know more about this one than me. Not something that I have piloted a ton. So we'll first talk about some of the cards in Mechs, just to get a feel for this archetype if you're unaware, if you're very new to the game. And yeah, we'll see where we go from there. But what is sort of the core? What's like the basic rundown of a Mechs list? Would you say, Lizard, for new players
Right.
who don't know the archetype?
So there's a whole bunch of mechs in the game, first of all. Um, Stuff like Ground Shaker, they're basically sentient machines, so to say. That's the lore behind it. Very important.
Lore is very important to any successful competitive game. Yes.
Right. But the main payoff in mechs is actually a spell that's called Detonate. And Detonate enables a lot of combos. It reads deal 2 to every adjacent mech. Right, so we have a lot of emphasis on this particular spell and drawing it. If you don't draw it, basically your deck becomes a random assortment of things. Outside of that, there's very little payoff. We have cards like Junk Feed, which is sort of a global buffer, but it really doesn't add too much in itself. It's all about Detonate, really.
Yeah, especially
And
when you're
then,
talking about just a single one of. But even
yeah, yeah,
even the mechanic itself is not really adding to what makes the mech list mechs.
yeah. So there's other tribal soups in the game that are heavier on the synergy between cards, like Raccoons, for example. They work greatly if you have multiple Raccoons on the board. And then you have stuff like the Raccoon Cannoneer, the Raccoon Illusionist, and they all require you to play Raccoons.
Mm-hmm.
But here it's just basically Detonate. Um, there's another synergy there though, and that synergy is just stacking a ton of removal, and that in itself uh, does pose quite the benefit, I would say, in Faeria. Because the more removal you use, the more efficient of a clear you'll have, usually. Well, if more options are available for clearing, um, you usually get better results. So yeah, a lot of AoE damage that you can threaten, and then there's a positional element there as well, which rewards you for having your max in the right place at the right time, basically.
Mm. It plays a lot like it is like a combo oriented deck where you need multiple cards in order to make the archetype function. Unlike a mid range deck where you could win with just a cipher building up big stats or something, or like just even a underground brigand getting really good hits. Mechs need a lot of cards to combo off with each other. Even the junk feed itself, you need other mechs to make that function.
Right,
So
right. So yeah, mostly it is a combo deck, but it can play for some tempo lines as well, which it's not as good as other decks, but it can work. Um, and yeah, some of the key cards here. Detonate, of course. That is one of the key pieces. Sometimes you even want to keep it in your mulligan because of how
Mm.
important it is in the deck. And then you have Ken Carrier, which is another great card. After the rework, it now reads as basically a 2-for-1. It does launch a 2-for mech onto another tile, opens up some great lines. Same for Airbot.
Yeah, as a little
Um,
history lesson for you all, Cannon Carrier used to be a, what was it, a ranged creature? Or was it you
no,
fling
it
a,
gave ranged. You
I,
could give the ranged keyword permanently to any creature.
right, it gave ranged. Yeah, that was a very strange card.
It was quite fun actually, but of course also costly because it was 7, I think, or a 2-4.
Right, it was part of the 7 synergy too, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, 7 for a 2-4
It
is
saw little
nuts.
play though. Yeah, it saw very little play, but fun card nonetheless.
Hmm.
One of my first decks in the game was actually Ken Carrier OTK.
Oh,
Yeah,
Cannon Carrier OTK, oh
um,
my.
basically a deck that revolved around buffing a Living Will to 20 HP, and then drawing your entire deck and giving it ranged.
That's excellent. There used to be so many fun OTK combos back in the past before they were nerfed.
Oh yeah, for sure. Back then, there was also old Feed, so you had Feed the Forest on
Oh yeah,
3, and Failed Experiment at 0 cost. Lots
yeah,
of stuff.
yeah. You could, it's just feed could be included in so many things. But anyways, getting
Yeah.
back on track, Cannon Carrier, very solid piece to the Mechs archetype. Necessary component, I would say, to the Mechs archetype, just
Yes,
because
yes,
of
yes.
how much range it gives your removal tools. Um,
It's the mobility, and on top of that, it's the second body that it provides.
mm,
So you'll
so
have to keep that in mind when we talk about thresholds as well. So Can Carrier plus Detonate, that's 7. You really want to try to play around those as well.
mm-hmm.
We can talk more in depth later about those. Um, Airbot is another card, critical piece, I would say. Often, often people get baited by playing it early on as a collector,
Yes, this is
when they should just
one of the biggest
save it
bait
up.
cards. Yeah, so Mechs also, just as an archetype as a whole, it plays quite differently from other archetypes. Much like the monstrosity list we discovered last stream, Mechs, you don't necessarily always need to drop collectors 100% of the time. Because Airbot, like has just been mentioned, is a very good pairing with Detonate, so sometimes it's good to just hold this in hand.
Yeah, that's about it. For critical cards, I would say. There's also, of course, Ground Shaker, which usually is a omnipresent threat in just about anything red.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so Ground Shaker pairs well with Cypher's Wrath, Embers, pairs also well with Detonate. Not only because it's a mech, but also because of the staggering effectiveness of it all. Of combining AoE removal essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, and mechs as a whole often holds their resources for a little bit of time, and then they drop everything all at once to get like ideally a full board clear. So they play as a very sort of controlling but comboing archetype, and Ground Shaker can help a lot with that. 1 damage doesn't seem like much, but when you're trying to control the entire board, or as much as possible on the board, that 1 AoE damage really stacks up.
Yeah, yeah. Um, there are a couple of other mechs that really don't add much to the proactive game plan. Um, which are cards like Unstable Forgeling, Beast Trainer you usually don't see in mechs as well.
Mm.
uh, fragmenter, or even flamethrower, because ideally you want those on the field before you detonate, right?
Mm.
But, the effect of unstable forgeling and as well as a flamethrower, for example, they incentivize them being played early for value, whereas a lot of the mech power comes from actually holding onto your cards and setting up that big combo turn.
Yeah, very true. They play kind of counterintuitively to the game plan that you actually want to be playing for the mechs. And I've seen like Fragmenter duo like in very specific situations, very specific scenarios. It can put on a lot of pressure, but those scenarios usually don't justify including this in a mechs list. You could play, I guess, more of like a mid-rangey mech list, which at which point you're playing like you're trying to play mono red combat, but you're just doing it in a worse way. And 6 Faeria is a lot to spend on a creature.
Yeah. You do have some better alternatives like the underground boss, for example,
Yeah,
which
it's simply
work
a
quite well.
cheaper, yeah, cheaper
Um,
creature, and it even gives you Faeria back, and it's a very similar stat line as well.
yeah, yeah. Um, it's also easier to block the fragmenter, especially if you're on a
Hmm.
low land count. Your opponent can simply step on the land and then deny you the combat summoning. So
Yeah,
very rarely you'll get more than one mech out of this.
yeah, also very true. And I mean, if you're not getting the mech out of this, you just paid 6 cost for a 3/6. That's a big ouchie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
Yeah, I like the design. I just don't know if it's the best mech unit per se.
hmm. One other thing to point out is the how you remove cards. Typically, removal cards in Faeria are like global, right? Like Soul Drain can come down anywhere, Cypher's Wrath can come down anywhere. But in Mechs, Detonate is very specific. Now, Cannon Carrier kind of helps with that a lot, where you can almost make it global removal just because Cannon Carrier can come down virtually anywhere. But
Yeah.
yeah, Detonate does require very specific positioning. Bomb Slinger, if you're running these, also require very specific positioning. So it's a lot less of that global removal from the rest of Faeria's removal tools. You really have to focus on good positioning setups.
Yeah, yeah. Um, that being said, the payoff is really good. So
Payoff is
once
very good,
you,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Once you establish a board, it's often very hard for the opponent to come back. Because the turn you clear them and you develop like 3 to 4 creatures, um, your opponent needs to answer those on top of redeveloping their own board. So mechs are really good at creating windows of imbalance on the board, and
Mm.
depending on how many reactive tools the opponent includes in their deck, it can be rather hard to get a foot back into the game.
Yeah, I
If they're
think
high on reactive tools themselves, like having Wind Soldier, having Soul Drain, or even Flame Burst or Cyphers themselves, um, they can make a comeback, and then it's hardest for mechs as well.
yeah. I think we touched on in the last stream about initiative, in where
Mm.
if you've got an established board, it becomes, well, pretty much reiterating what Lizard just said, but if you have an established board, it's very difficult to come back on board because you need to summon creatures if you want to, like, establish well control and stuff. But if you're summoning creatures, they can't do anything until the next turn. And meanwhile, your opponent has this massive board, they can do whatever they want. So that is one of the reasons it's very difficult to come back on board when you lose initiative to a big swing turn that Mechs can pull off. Airbot
Um,
also helps really well with getting those good positioning. The same idea with the cannon
yeah,
carry.
yeah,
That
yeah.
dash 2 helps so much.
Much about the cards. We can go into detail later. Um, let's talk strategies, yeah. So,
Strategies.
strategies, yeah. We like to talk about strategies. Um, like I mentioned earlier, you won't get the best use out of Mechs if you're um playing for tempo, if you're trying to control the board every turn, because then you'll eventually run out of efficient removal.
Hmm.
Um, so instead of clearing early with the Cypher's Wrath, try and hold up and try to wait for a detonate combo.
Yeah, the
Because
longer...
essentially, the longer you wait, the better it gets. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, and it's always a question when you're playing mechs on what moment or on how long you should wait before you pop that detonate. And that is
Mm.
probably one of the trickier elements to the deck, at least in my experience, is knowing at what point you should pull that, or do we greed a little bit and keep holding, which can be punishing if you hold for too long.
Yeah, yeah, it's a delicate decision, definitely. And I think a lot of people also get baited by, playing the removal too early, and then having not enough resource for the combo in the end. Or even using the detonate too early to clear. I think
Yeah,
that's a common mistake.
and the detonate can be seen as kind of a win condition in a sense with this list, where in other lists, like let's say you're playing an angry list, Firebringers are your big boy win condition. That's the card you're trying to build your entire strategy up towards. In the mech list, it's a very cheap card, but detonate, I would say, is got similar vibes to that being your win condition. So if you spend all three of your detonates, suddenly your deck has no more power anymore. This is really the big power swing of your deck, so you gotta make sure you're using it wisely.
Yeah, yeah. Because if you don't, you'll just end up playing a wonky red list, and
Yeah.
uh, there's no real benefit to that. Yeah. There's also you can also note that Mech detonate deals damage to all adjacent enemies, which includes the orb.
Hmm.
So it's a max of 6 damage to the orb if you position accordingly.
Yeah. This
Which
card
it
does.
will not always, but
Hmm.
you can often guarantee like 4 face damage by turn 5. That's possible.
And if you're using a cannon carrier in conjunction with that, that's a lot of pressure. You've just suddenly dumped a 4/2 at their face plus extra damage. At least you're representing that extra damage. It's a lot of
Hmm.
pressure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, that being said, there is still the option to play Max as more of a tempo list, or played in a tempo style if the matchup demands it.
Hmm.
So if you're playing versus a list that can really punish your waiting game, that has a lot of reactive tools to re-establish board, it might be a good idea to play for board control much earlier on versus waiting for the combo.
Hmm.
And then even using your removal early. So you're essentially delaying a lot of your power spike, but in return you're contesting the board at a much earlier stage.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of experience to know which matchups you should pop those removal tools earlier on and which ones to go later. But we can, of course, talk about that a little bit later.
Um,
Uh, Go ahead.
that's about it, I think. At least in terms of the main modes of playing mech. You can also sort of go for an OTK with it.
Mm.
It usually revolves around you having Ken Carrier, and like I said, at around turn 5, you get most of your creatures down. If you have the Ken Carrier and you have your 4 lands being set up defensively, you can launch onto the enemy land, and then ideally you have an airboat to go along, so you get a total development of 3 aggressive creatures.
Yeah, and then paired with that
Because on
detonate
turn 5 you can
removal,
make the
it's
aggressive
big.
mountain as well, right?
Right, I see what you're saying. Yeah, so yeah, launch it onto the land, and then you actually get a land being able to be developed as well. So if you don't have anything more to talk on the cards, do you want to take a look at the lists?
Yeah, I guess we can, yeah.
Unless you got something more pressing to talk about.
It all it all flows into each other, really.
It'll all mush together, yeah.
We can talk more on maybe the differences between mechs and standard red decks as well. Um, but yeah, that also becomes a lot easier when you're more familiar with the list as well.
Yeah, so I've built 3 different lists here. Lizard has a Mechs list that he has designed himself that I've piloted a little bit. I think the more standard Mechs list is one built by Alpanico we can take a look at in a sec. Well, I say standard, just the mech list that I've seen most people mimic at least. So with Lizard's mech list, we've got some... I mean, there's still a lot of standard cards in here, of course, as well, but we've got cards like Hellfire and Shadow Silk Fairy, sort of doubling down on that, trying to get into those removal tools as much as possible, and then being able to afford those removal tools with really low deck-wide cards like a My Map Dealer here. But I'll let you talk about the list since it's your creation and you know more. You know better than me.
Right. Like you said, my map dealer is a great way of generating a lot of Faeria. If you don't have a my map dealer, you could slot and farm boy. Does a similar job. Though then you probably also don't have the detonate card, which is really key for playing this archetype.
Yeah, unfortunately, you kind of do need DLC to play this archetype. Mechs is not an archetype without the detonate.
Yeah.
I mean, you can try, but it'll be just purely thematic at that point.
Yeah, you can play for lore points.
Yeah.
But yeah, one reason why MI works so good in Mechs is you do want a non-committal collector. Any other collector really does suppose a big cost, a big investment. Even a brigand might be a bit expensive, might even get cleared by a flame burst. The map dealer is great, just flat out 0 cost. Enables a lot of things. It's also great for redeveloping after a big mech clear. So.
And it's really difficult to for your opponent to actually efficiently remove this. They can't just throw a soul drain on this because that's just like a huge loss for them. So really they can only kill this with either Ground Shaker, which is only specific to red, or getting an aggressive creature up in here.
Yeah, but even a Ground Shaker wouldn't really be as effective. You basically want to trade it with a creature. And then automatically that does put some more value into your detonate turn, because your opponent just invested a creature, however big it may be, but
yeah,
you know, plays into that thematic as well. Yeah, then you've got a card like Hellfire, which is also not entirely easy to to grasp or intuitive to understand. Hellfire basically scales with your removal, with your AoE removal. So if you combo it with a card like Ground Shaker or Detonate, it does get much better. Whereas if you
Yeah.
just cast it on a plain board without having damaged any unit whatsoever, it will be significantly worse. But as you keep on stacking your removal, it does get better, and you increase the odds of actually clearing it, clearing the board with it. And there's also the implication of just having a finisher in Hellfire. So after a big turn where you detonate and you clear a lot of board, you can even Hellfire just for, having the extra face damage.
Yeah, 9 damage is a lot. You only got 20 HP. So if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
got some Cypher's Wrath pings getting thrown in there as well, maybe even a Detonate ping on face, like 2 Hellfires is lethal a lot of time. Well, I don't know, sometimes.
And I don't think any other red deck has the ability to clear board like Mechs does, so
Hmm.
Hellfire really shines in this, in my opinion.
Yeah, not really usable in standard red lists just because their removal options don't pair as nicely with this card, which, like you said, might be a little bit unintuitive maybe to newer players. But if you're getting that AoE removal, like Ground Shaker knocking everything down a peg, Detonate maybe knocking everything down a peg, and then Hellfire as a finisher rather than a starter. Even though it is a lot of damage pings on this card text, is random, so you really have to limit that. And if all you've got is Cypher's Wrath and Flame Burst, and I guess Ground Shaker and Standard Red, it's not as likely you're going to get clears with the Hellfire. Detonate really helps a lot with that.
I've also seen a lot of people play it in Burn, and then
Mm.
proceed to lose the board right afterwards. Yeah, it really doesn't work too well in Burn, because you're already, if you're playing stuff like Grimguard, the Bloodsinger as well, you're not really playing for board. You're playing subpar creatures, or subpar static creatures at least.
Yeah,
And
and it
then
would.
adding a Hellfire on top of that doesn't really win you any games. So
Yeah,
it would be better to play more stall options in Burn, more direct face damage. But Hellfire isn't even guaranteed to necessarily always hit face if your board is large. Yeah.
yeah, it's good to point out. If you're maybe unfamiliar with Faeria or card games in general, because this is across all of card games, but face damage virtually represents nothing. It's what you need to do to win the game, but if you're investing Faeria into face damage, that's not actually accomplishing anything, or at least it's not giving you value back for your economy that you've been spending. So, for example, if you spend 7 Faeria to deal 9 face damage, you're suddenly 7 Faeria down behind your opponent. And your opponent can spend that 7 Faeria to like take back the board, control the board or something. And that's just an example with Hellfire. But you can do similar things with, like, I've seen like very new players just straight up flame burst face when the opponent's had 20 life. You're suddenly just dropping down 3 Faeria below your opponent and not really gaining any advantage for it. So ideally you want to be saving any face damage as possible towards the end of the game to close out the game. So Hellfire is... Yeah, ideally you'd want 0 pings to go to face. This is not really great at going face, but yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah. Another oddball here, maybe Shadowsilk Ferry. Which it does get better after you clear the board. It also pairs nicely with your removal, like Cypher's Flame Burst. just because it clears up any path to corruption, really.
Mm-hmm.
And with the way you want to set up your lands, it often does allow for the Shadow Silk to go into double collection as well. So you can really use those charge lines effectively.
Yeah, what I really like about this too is how efficient of a collector this is. You really don't want to be spending very much Faeria on collectors in this list because um, you want all of your Faeria going towards removal clears on your opponent's creatures. So this is just super sturdy, and I mean it's a 1/1, but it's sturdy because of that protection ability. If your opponent wants to clear it, they have to throw 2 things into it. And it has the potential to double collect, and it's only 3 cost. A little bit pricey on the lands, but you don't need to be necessarily playing collectors as early in mechs as you do with other archetypes.
Right, and that ties in again with the combo and the thresholds. We can talk about those later. But yeah, also really nice to refill your hand once you depleted it after the combo. Just ties in really well with the deck, in my opinion.
Yeah, when I first saw this list, I was startled by all of the strange and new cards to me. But after playing it a little bit, definitely warmed up to the Shadow Silk Fairy. I think it's an excellent card in the mech archetype.
Yeah, a lot of mech deck building isn't super intuitive, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's why you also see such a variety of lists floating around. You see the Oddball Fragmenter, you see some Forgelings lost in the woods.
Yeah. Yeah, and S pointed
Yeah.
out it's a good card in combo. Which, yeah, true too, because the combo sort of archetype, like I mentioned, where you need to build up a lot of these different cards, card draw becomes very important as well, because if you want to have Detonate plus Mech in hand, those 2 cards you need. You only draw 1 card a turn. So if you want to get this consistently, that 2 card draw, even though it's only events, like maybe you don't have any mechs in hand, but this also deck filters so that it makes it more likely to draw into those mechs that you need for the combo.
Yeah, and there aren't a ton of events. Some you have around 9 in total, so it's really not that much. Chances are you'll find a. Actually, you'll have more, right? Yeah. Sorry, you have 12 events.
Right.
Right, but still, that's not a lot. And chances are likely you'll find a detonator or at least something useful. Even double drawing something like a flame burst suddenly opens up an avenue of playing for face damage and playing for early finisher, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Then after you've played a map dealer, there's also the added treasure map that you can draw into, which is an additional. Well, it's an additional draw. Let's say that up until you finish all the map quest, right?
Right, true. You can, yeah, it could even help you. Yeah, help you towards that map quest, like you said. Which is very interesting because typically, if you're running map dealer by itself without any other treasure sort of synergy, you're probably never seeing that treasure in a match.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's still unlikely, but slightly more likely.
It does work well in decks that want to draw a lot naturally.
Hmm.
So in some games where you'll go the extra mile to the late game, you can finish that map quest, but
Right.
it's mostly there as a collector early on, the map dealer.
And then I think Ulan is in here. I think you can figure that out for yourself. Pretty obvious. We don't have very many creatures in the list, and we're holding our creatures a lot of the time, so Ulani can very easily get value out of it,
Yeah,
which
it's a
is a
great
lot.
stall tool. Yeah.
And that too.
Another important part about Yulani in this is it does lock the opponent creatures in place.
Mm,
So if you're trying to buy one turn for a detonate clear, you can jolt on a Yulani and then you lock two creatures, or mostly up to two creatures in place, sometimes even more.
right.
But yeah, that's also very important.
Yeah, and this
Makes
is
it harder
the
for your opponent to play around.
Yeah, and this is the neutral Ulani for clarification. I realize I probably should be speaking. I said near the beginning of this I wanted it to be like a podcast, and here I'm like, yeah, we got all these cards in here, we're just Ulani and all that, but I probably should specify. This is the neutral Ulani that gains taunt and protection and divine when you got no other creatures on
Yeah,
board.
good specification there.
Yeah, Ulani has gone down two different paths in his life.
Yeah, yeah. Helping out the podcast front. Okay, that's about that, I'd say.
Okay,
If
yeah,
you want to
so
check the list, it's on the hub.
yeah, it is on the hub. I'll hopefully remember to post links in the description of the video, but I'll also have just the lists on screen as visuals. Um, so that is Lizard's Mechs, which I think he has done a really good job capturing what the mech archetype actually excels at. But we can take a look at a more standard mech list. Just what more people I think have built in the past, at least. I don't think I've seen anyone deviate too strictly from this type of setup. So we'll take a look at El Panico's Mechs list that I found on the hub. Good to note that this was, I believe, posted in like 2020 or something, so 2 years ago, but the cards haven't really changed much in 2 years, so... And a great thing to note about this one, this actually goes for more of a emphasis on a starting creature, I believe. Maybe not this list particularly, but we do have Underground Brigand in this list, which, as Lizard said, is quite a large investment compared to the Amaya Map Dealer. This can get your investment back, so it kind of does depend on the matchups a little bit, but if it gets Flame Bursted, sure, you're trading 3 Faeria for 3 Faeria, but it's a little bit more impactful for you because you really need a lot of Faeria to play all of your cards here.
Yeah, yeah. Underground Brigand is still a great card though, especially in red. The most efficient things you can play. Yeah, so it's not a bad include by all means, but I wouldn't necessarily run it. I see Alpanico's list isn't running Shaker, which
Is it not right?
seems so, yeah.
That seems very strange. Maybe I don't think I would have copied it wrong, but Shaker seems like a must-have in the list, but like I said, this was in 2020. Maybe he was trying to counter specific meta picks or something. I'm not sure. But yeah, I am not actually seeing a Ground Shaker here, so that is interesting.
There's a Garrett in there. So.
There is a Garrett in this. I don't think this was when Gary was 3 damage. That was more than 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
We had that big COVID kerfuffle, so it was definitely well before that. But yeah, Ground Shaker, I would say, is a must-have just in a Mechs list, just because of how impactful it is. Bomb Slinger is neat, though this is specific. You need specific lands produced for this. Sometimes this will involve like building up to 5 lands, where I think Lizard mentioned earlier, where you could Cannon Carrier and then build a mountain to get an aggressive land. You could do a similar idea with the Bomb Slinger, but it is going to cost you 5 lands more frequently than not having the Bomb Slinger.
Right. It's also a lot worse if your opponent doesn't extend into the range of Bomb Slinger.
Yeah,
The
so
Wingate is there to combat that, but still.
yeah, and this is actually a decent thing to mention about depending on what stage you are in the ladder. If you're facing like newer players, Bomb Slinger's much easier to pull off because a lot of players aren't aware of this card maybe, or they're not aware of how or why they should play around this card. But when you get higher up on the ladder, players are going to start to predict you having Bomb Slinger, or even just not even predicting it. It's pretty easy to play out of range where you just take a little step back out of mountain range. So there's a lot of weaknesses to this card in higher competitive play, maybe less so in the lower rankings. But if you are a lower ranking player, this is something that can give you a little bit of an edge in your current matches as well, because your opponent might be banking on the fact that, oh yeah, all of my opponents so far have played into this. So don't play into Bomb Slinger. Take a little step back. Always consider this in more mono red style of list. Yeah, there is Ground Shaker in Alpanico's list, so I think I just copied it wrong. So I wonder what I copied wrong here then. He mustn't have included triple Wrath, triple Flame Burst. That must be it. Yeah, there's no Flame Burst in this actually. There's Ground Shaker here instead. So yeah, actually that is something that players have typically done in the past. We also see that there's Emperor's Command in this list, somewhat substituting that lack of Flame Burst, and that can happen when you're very concerned with burn matchups. This was more of a tournament list that El Panico brought. So Emperor's Command is more of a counter pick towards those burn lists, and there's a lot of cards that are really necessary to include in mechs, so sometimes you gotta sacrifice cards for those ones. But yeah, Ground Shaker, a very necessary piece. Yeah, so sometimes we also see Axe Grinder, I think. At least in the past, I've seen Axe Grinder be creatures where, again, they're putting emphasis on having starting creatures. And I think when Mechs was sort of first introduced to the meta, that's how people were playing it often. The same way we play like mid-range lists and such, we need these starting creatures, and 3 Faeria is always a pretty decent starting creature. So that yeah, and it's not awful. It still can work quite well. Like Axe Grinder's an excellent card, Brigand's an excellent card, but it doesn't. Or at least the Axe Grinder doesn't play as well into the sort of control combo-y archetype we're going for. Brigand you can justify because it can gain some combat hits back, but yeah.
It also falls off if you draw these later on, if you don't open them.
True.
You can still break. You can still have no opening collector.
Very
the
good point.
Command has a similar idea as the Yulani in my build. I think it's mostly there. Oh, my voice. Gee. Okay, ignore any voice cracks coming your way.
Don't die yet, Lizard. We need you still.
I'm not ready yet. Anyhow, the command basically has a similar idea in mind. It's mostly there for stalling. You're trying to buy as much time as possible up until you can find your combo pieces.
Right.
There's also Windgate, right? Which is helpful to some degree. But then again, you're also paying a card for that. Same with Grappling Hook. You really want your cards to be good at what they're doing if you're including them. And sometimes even just having a card slot go into something like mobility or stall can be quite detrimental if it means you don't get to assemble the combo.
And just to reiterate about what you said just there about the cost of a card, Not necessarily meaning the one Faeria cost up here, but the slot this actually takes up, and the impact this has of like just simply drawing it with your one card draw you get a turn. That can be quite an expensive cost, just the card draw itself, where this could be something more useful, like a removal tool or something. But yeah, this does help a lot with getting your mechs into tricky positions. Pretty cool for that, especially those bomb slingers. This could be used as a stall tool as well, with that 4 HP, just a 4 HP 1 cost structure.
Yeah. In some cases, definitely. Yeah, not always usable. Same for grappling hook.
Yeah,
Very specific.
Very specific and situational card. This does boost up to 5 lands, which you've heard a lot of us say in the past. We want low land counts. If we're on like 4 land counts, then why do we boost up to 5? Well, a grappling hook can be often strong enough to justify this if you want to use it in that way. Also, since we've got Bomb Slinger in this list, remember we're probably going to have to go up to 5 lands anyways just to get those Bomb Slinger positions. Hopefully not, but it might come down to that. But yeah, grappling hook can be a little tricky for that reason. And honestly, I think Flame Burst would be maybe better suited to this slot anyways than a grappling hook.
Yeah, there's only a couple of really good targets. Like a Ground Shaker would be premium. Sometimes Bomb Slinger can be enough. You just double down on the attack of the Bomb Slinger with a grappling hook.
Yeah, and so you really have like 4 power, 5 power maybe, which is not like super far off of the Flame Burst's 3 power. So you really need to get the secondary effect off as well, where you teleport the creature aggressive, but kind of difficult with Bomb Slinger because you're probably getting these already into reasonably aggressive positions in the first place. At least they're going to be contesting lands, like, almost guaranteedly.
Yeah. The grappling hook really is just there for boosting the HP on the Bomb Slinger. And if you get a collection with it, that's also great, but...
Oh, that's a fair point, yeah. You can collect with this as well.
It's effective HP, it's not actual HP.
Yeah. It's like a safeguard, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it for that list, I think.
Yeah.
Set here.
Yeah.
A lot less like a combo deck, I think. There's more.
It's yeah, it definitely plays a little bit more mid-range. You can probably still go for some combo lines, but you're probably not going to be holding your cards as much as you would in like Lizard's Mechs. And I guess we have kind of 3 speeds here. I quickly built this Mech Rush list because I have been seeing it every once in a while in tournaments. Bamster's been playing it a lot. So I thought it was worth mentioning at least in case you run into something like this. I feel like another player has played this as well. And I'm not like super familiar. I'm definitely not as familiar with this one as the more standard variants, but pretty much like it says, you just rush to the opponent. Again, trying to get those value clears. So one thing with like the combo-oriented mechs, like I said, you can't always, or you don't always need an early game collector. So I think what the Mech Rush list here is doing is just saying, I'm not even going to bother with an early game collector, and I'm just going to get my lands into maybe better positions to get off these detonate lines.
Yeah, that's the basic idea behind it, I think. You do forego some of the collections, but you do get the better positioning, so you can then in return get more value on the combo turn. That of course makes it also reliant on the combo, just like the other decks.
Yeah, it's very...
But this one a bit more so even. There's cards like Helicopter that play into that as well. And usually you'll get some good value. At least against most decks, because your opponent will have a collector. Will usually collect to the sides against rush, and then proximity is there. On top of that, cards like Brigand do perform a bit better in this, just because they pose a threat of hitting face and generating more value that way. Closing out the game becomes easier if you have Flameburst Ciphers as well, and you have a lot of available damage to face.
Yeah, Detonate can hit face. Bomb Slinger becomes a lot easier to get good shots on. Because like I said, it's easy-ish to play around Bomb Slinger usually, but when you're rushing, it's a lot harder, because if you're defending against rush, you don't want to be investing too many lands, and your opponent's already at your face. You don't really have much wiggle room to maneuver your creatures around and dodge these aggressive mountains. So Bomb Slinger can often get some pretty good value there.
But again, there's also the downside of, not being able to collect, and that's how usually most rush games are lost, by the opponent defending, having the Faeria advantage, and then, just winning the resource game in the long run.
Yeah. And I think I've seen some players run Flamethrower in this type of list. Build a mountain center and then go for the rush lens, just because you've got so many, you got to build up to 4 mountains in this list, which is a lot. And Flamethrower, I think, can cheese you some wins sometimes, just because it's almost like a Flame Burst if it doesn't get answered right away. But it is quite a heavy investment still. 3 Faeria is a lot, especially when it can be countered with a simple Soul Drain for cheaper. But this can apply a lot of pressure. It's just also another point is that it doesn't synergize with any of the other pieces. I mean, okay, you could put an aggressive Flamethrower and get a Detonate, but that's not something you want to be doing. That's very expensive. So there's a lot less room in the list, especially when you're all in on the combo with this rush-oriented list. You're not going to be able to draw as commonly as you could with the other lists where you can collect. Yes. So card slots become even more important in this sort of list, because you're not going to be able to outdraw the Flamethrower. If this is a dead draw in your games, you're not going to be able to outdraw this Flamethrower as easily as you could with a more collecting mech rush. A collecting mech deck.
Yeah, and that is true for a lot of rush decks in general. You're limited on the power wheel usage, which makes a more standard mech list better, because you're drawing more likely into your detonates. Here you're forced to build your lands and also contest and get your creatures into position. Really makes it a lot more draw dependent. Also, Flamethrower comes down fairly late in this. If you're going mountain, double neutrals.
Yeah, true, especially.
Flamethrower.
Yeah, like 3 mountains is already pushing it, but then you're throwing in a double neutral play in there as well. Yeah, that's a very late stage of the game where it comes down. And typically also rush loses in the later stages of the game, because at that point your opponent's been able to build up Faeria collections and build up lands to get to their better and more efficient cards. So rush needs a big impact on that early game. Though I suppose it plays a little bit differently with how the Mechs variant works. But anyways, I think that's about it for all of the lists.
So much for that. Maybe we can talk a bit more about one particular list, or its place in the meta, when to pick it, when to not pick Mechs, and yeah, go a bit more in depth on that.
Yeah, for sure. I think so if we sort of list out the how to say, like, maybe pacings of each list. Obviously the rush list is the fastest. this El Panico Mechs might be more of a mid-rangey list than anything. And then Lizard's Mechs, I think, plays a lot more into that sort of detonate combo. So this would be on the slower, control-y end of the spectrum.
Right, but keep in mind also you can alter the speeds and not necessarily are you stuck with going for control lines if you're playing combo. You can
Yeah,
also go
true.
for early, you can go for the burnout, you can go for two-turn kill setups. There's a lot of room really. And on the same token, you can also play for the combo with your rush list or the mid-range list. It depends how far you're willing to lean into
Right.
that, depending on every matchup that you're playing and how much time you have in that matchup, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by how much time, I mean basically how frequent you're allowed to draw with a power wheel.
Right. So let's let's take your mech list here first and just say what matchups would you prefer to play this into? Like if you were in a tournament and you predicted what archetype your opponent was going to play, what archetype would you feel comfortable playing this mech list into?
Right. So again, very flexible. Like the monstrosity list, you can adapt to your opponent's game plan, which makes it a great tournament list. Um, you would prefer playing this into any yellow list, any blue list, red lists, mostly a 50-50, depends on how fast they are. But anything that swarms, generally will have a great time with this. And again, if your opponent doesn't have a lot of reactivity, this can pay off big time as well, because you'll just go for big board clear, then your opponent is required to develop another set of creatures onto the board before he can actually react to your units, and by that time you'll have easily pushed around 11 damage or so, just by having your creatures stick around.
Right.
So most commonly, I would say red, yellow, angry, as this lack of reactivity. They just have wind soldiers as a removal to thunder eel, but those are fairly easy to play around.
Yeah,
If
and
you're yeah.
I was
So
just
if
gonna
you're
clarify first what you're meaning by reactivity is pretty much like removal tools are ways to respond to cards that you're dropping, in case anyone is unaware.
So that can be a haste creature, right? Because you can skip the summoning sickness. That can be any removal spell like soul drain, flame burst, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, so you need that if you want to win against Mechs, basically, or you need to play proactively in a very distinct manner. If your deck can't do that, this is going to have a great time at exploiting that. Also, a lot of people play wrong versus angry in particular, at least versus the lists that have been around. If you're not exploiting that weakness of angry, they will just steamroll you. And essentially, what happens is you're trading a bit of board, right? You're doing a bit of back and forth, but at some point, the angry player will just outvalue you by having that scaling online, having that hate seed, that firebringer. So they'll get an advantage, and a pretty significant one at that. So essentially, you need to create windows of imbalance and again exploit the lack of reactive tools for the angry player.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, back to the the topic at hand. What I would actually pick this into. It does fare well into a lot of mid-range decks. Again, mostly on the lighter side, blue, yellow, that works well. Then there's also slower decks that you can play into. So if your opponent is playing something like Crassus, you will have to play a bit differently in this case, and that entails holding onto your cannon carrier. That's a combo piece, and then going for going for a launch on turn 5 mostly. Get onto the enemy land, drop a few creatures aggressive, play the detonate, and go for an early finish through burn, right?
Right.
Because if you're playing for board, you're not going to win into Crassus in the long run. You have to close up the game eventually, and the most effective way of doing that is through burn and through setting up a 2-turn clock or something like that. It can be okay to win through Hellfire as well, but that does require some setup and is usually a bit more expensive. So it's better to play for a 2-turn kill setup, I think.
Right.
Through cards like Ground Shaker, etc.
Right. So
And yeah,
yeah.
that's
So
it.
Swarm is a good counter, unless they're Carassius, because Carassius has a very different game plan. Again, very combo-y. Don't want to kill off those
Swarm isn't a
Carassius.
great counter. Oh, you mean Mechs being a good counter
Mechs
to
being a
Swarm?
good counter to Swarm is what I mean.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Okay, now we're on the same page.
Yes. I don't know what I said, but yeah, that's what I mean. And Carassius is a bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it should be pretty obvious why it's good against Swarm, just because you have AoE damage essentially with those mech detonates. And what are the weaknesses, would you say, to for the mech list?
Basically, a lot of green decks, right? A lot of decks that can play non-committal collectors. Cards like the Living Willow, where you really don't want to invest anything into contesting. Decks that have a lot of reactivity as well. That can make use of cards like Soul Drain, Cypher's Wrath. The 2 damage threshold is really important as well, because you have the 4-2 mech that spawns with the cannon carrier, and the 2 HP is as well present on the airbot. It's good to have that removal piece available. Some more defensive combo decks as well can be a bit tricky to get down.
Right.
Husk can sometimes be annoying to deal with because they clog your hand, and then you usually want to sit on your cards, so you can't really play any cards
Yeah,
out.
you often have quite a full hand, so a Maya Merchant really messes with that.
Right, but since Detonate got changed, since Husk got changed to 2 HP, it's the line now of using Detonate to clear a Husk. Mostly
Right,
you want to do
true.
that as incremental damage, right? You don't want to fully commit anything to the Husk clear. There's also the option of playing double Ground Shaker to clear Husk, which again, you really wouldn't want to invest 12 into the Husk clear.
Yeah,
If
you kind
you're
of want
taking
to.
a board wipe and it's incremental value, it's great as well.
Yeah, you kind of want to just have that accidental. Oh look, I killed a husk. Whoopsie.
Yeah, yeah.
And so also you mentioned that certain combo lists are really difficult for the mechs list. If their list is not like creature oriented, then suddenly you're like the whole game plan, which is revolved around killing creatures, isn't doing what it meant to do, right?
Right, but then you can play for face damage, right? Which is also possible.
Yeah, that
It
detonate
becomes a bit
is pretty
tricky if they're running
flexible.
stuff like Plague Bearer failed, right? So essentially you're both doing the same. And your opponent is just waiting for you to commit anything to the board, and then you have to play your detonate proactively, which means they get a better failed Plague Bearer combo.
Right.
So that can backfire for you as well. But again, it shouldn't really be discouraging too much, because the deck still packs a lot of power. If your opponent passes a few too many turns, they'll just take a Hellfire to the face, and that damage sticks as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what's a pretty interesting matchup is the Mech v Mech matchup. That often becomes a game of chicken, almost in a way, where you don't want to invest too many creatures. Although this is also a way that you want to play against mechs as well, where you don't want to be investing too many creatures because they can suddenly all be cleared. Another thing you have to keep track of also, though, is not leaving open land spaces for cannon carriers to easily step on, which is easier for certain decks to do than others, because you do have tools like Cypher's Wrath, which can open up those empty spaces to pop a cannon carrier onto. But if you're something like mono green, it could be worth filling your entire filling all of your lands with like high life creatures that can't be cannon carriered.
Yeah, but that's more of the gameplay that you can adjust to play around mechs. Not so much in deck building. If I could just give a few more pointers.
Yeah, go ahead.
Again, collectors like Living Willow, Sturdy Shell all work fantastic versus the mech archetype. You really don't want to invest anything into those, essentially. And most of the time, they'll just keep collecting.
Yeah.
With a standard list, you'd have more board presence early on. So contesting a Living Willow becomes much easier, just because you can drop a decently sized creature, and then the creature itself will contest the Living Willow. Much harder to do with the mechs.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, like you said, it goes a long way just to be patient versus mechs, not to overcommit onto the board. Try to make can carry as awkward as possible to place. Don't give away too many lines if you can afford it, and that's about it. Also, knowing timing is really important. Faeria thresholds. That's
right.
Very important as well.
Before we move on to that next topic, I just want to mention. Oh god, I've lost it.
Get it back. Don't lose it.
Oh no. I had a thought. What was my thought? Okay, well, I've forgotten it. Well, we can come back to it. Yeah, so Faeria thresholds.
Yeah. So one way of playing around mechs is keeping in mind the Faeria count. One reason why this is important is because everything revolves around the detonate combo.
JT, thanks for the sub.
Plus detonate. Can carrier plus detonate, that's 7, right? You wanna be mindful of that. So if you can deny a collection, that would put your opponent into the range of carrier detonate. Try to take that when it's important, right? Try to deny that when it's important. And then you can add more emphasis on denying in steps of 2, right? So every 2 additional Faeria is another airbot they could add to the combo, which becomes important. Or maybe another Cypher's Wrath they're adding. So it's 7, 9, 11. Those are the thresholds you should be worrying about. If you put in the Ground Shaker into the mix, that can of course alter the Faeria thresholds, but again, you can make adjustments on the fly, see when you're vulnerable to Ground Shaker or when you're most vulnerable to it. Play around that.
And thresholds not only are important when considering what to play around, but even as the mech player, this is something you should probably be considering as well, because like we've been talking about, where you often hold your cards for quite a while, for quite a little bit. You want to be kind of counting how much Faeria you're going to have to work with on the following turn, if you're kind of deciding what to do on the current turn. So even as the mech player, you want to consider these thresholds of like 7 +2 +2 +2.
Yeah, very useful both for the mech player and the antagonist.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe we move on to land placement now, because we've been talking much and then haven't really showcased a lot of gameplay yet.
Yes.
But yeah.
True.
More on that later.
Yeah, so here, I can invite you to a lobby. And what we'll do for this, because like I said, I'm testing out trying this as like a podcast format. So what we'll do is we'll use some of the hex coordinates that I've been casually sliding to you guys here and there. But if you're unaware of the hex coordinates, I'll try and make sure to post those on the video if I remember.
Yeah, so basically hex coordinates in Faeria are named numerical as well as alphabetically, counting down from top left to bottom right. Actually, no, it's top left and then you go down, so it's a top down. And then
isn't it
you
not
go left,
bottom
right.
left, bottom left up?
Bottom
Right?
left. Oh, it's
So
you have it. You have it. Okay, you have it. So yeah, sorry.
yeah, so
You have a different setup than me.
Okay, so yeah, so there's two different orientations that we use the coordinates on, or that people use the coordinates on. Oh, I don't have it on Twitch. I thought I had set that up. Okay, yeah. Well, there's two different coordinate systems that players use. I think the one that most of us use has been the one where the bottom left is A1, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think I just swapped them around my mind, but yeah.
I see.
That's the one I use as well. Yeah, so starting with A1 and A2 on the left, and then you have B1, B2, B3, etc.
Yeah, bottom up, facing the active player, whoever is being talked about, I suppose, or
yes.
who's got the view.
The view.
Yeah, I should have the coordinates on Twitch, but it's not showing up for me, so maybe that extension is no longer working. Oh, okay. Maybe my... Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, hello, people from chat who I have been ignoring a little bit. Yes, Lizard is German. He's on much different... He's on the other side of the world, so we're... Coordinating those schedules can be interesting.
Okay.
Oh, here, let me set maybe a larger time bank, or a turn timer.
I'll have to pick a deck, sorry. I think I missed.
Yeah. No, I just went back. I'll just set the turn timer to max so we can talk. Yeah, so just talking about land placement doesn't really matter too much on the list. Yeah, so yeah. Start on the bottom left. Well, we start on the left-hand side, and then we go to the bottom, which is A1, A2, and then each column has a letter, and then each space has a number counting up from bottom to top.
Right. Okay, first mountain is generally on D1. The reason why you want to be on D1 is because it opens up a lot of the map, basically.
Right.
It also sets up your Shadow Silk Ferry for later on, so that's useful as well. Your Shadow Silk Ferry can then move on to B2 or F2, and then move on to B4, F4 after that. It also is generally a good spot for cannon carrier if you're looking for aggression. You're usually finding a target if your opponent is doing mid-range as well. You can get an avenue towards their orb this way. Second tile, usually I do deserts. Either left or right from D1, so you would be on C2 or E2 accordingly. The reason why I want to do that is because of the map dealer. You want to have the desert in proximity to a well, just because your map dealer can then step over and collect.
Right.
So next turn is tricky, or at least not as obvious. You could take the well spot. That's possible. So you'd go F2, and then next turn you'd go F3. Alternatively, you can build up. So you'd be on E3 or C3. And the reason why that could be useful is because it opens up more lines of dashing, of playing Ken Carrier or playing simply a mech in an aggressive spot.
Right, and those line placements would depend on the matchup generally, right?
Right, yeah. Would really advise going up as if you have a ferry, right? That and makes things a lot easier as well. If you don't have a ferry, it can be a bit trickier to justify this placement.
Right, yeah, your current hand plays a big impact in a lot of different decisions you make in any archetype.
Yeah, yeah.
Or at least any
also
flexible
you have to consider
archetype.
whether your ferry would stick around or not. So if your opponent is on Empress Command, Humbling Vision, generally not a great idea to open with a ferry. But yeah, for the sake of simplicity, let's do a bit of standard placement here.
Yeah, so one of these two spots, we'll pick the F2 spot on the well. Pretty solid for those fairy chargings. Airbot, oh right, so there is that consideration of whether to hold on to the airbot or drop it. So in what scenarios would you hold on to the airbot in the early game like this, and what scenarios would you drop it?
If I know my opponent has a lot of removal, like you're playing Mechs, right? It's probably a good idea to keep it in hand. If you're already on one collector, or if you can pop a collector in the foreseeable future, it's also a great idea to hold on to the airbot. If you're looking for an aggressive start into the matchup, it's also great to hold the airbot. So if you're playing versus combo, you wanna try to keep the airbot for when you deploy the cannon carrier.
All right.
So you get a better detonate essentially. So right now we have three lands set up. We have access to most of our cards. We don't have access to detonate quite yet. We don't have access to ground shaker, but we can play pretty much all of our removal very comfortably. We can use flame burst ciphers. We can also deploy map dealer. And at this stage, you really want to draw as well a lot. And the reason why you want to draw at this stage is because you're not too sure where you want to put your third mountain yet, right?
And this is
So
true also for like pretty much any archetype, by the way. If you're like, well, most archetypes, where if you're one shy of your maximum land count you need, which is 4 in this case, you don't necessarily want to invest it right away, unless you know where it's going 100%, or maybe there's other decisions to be made there as well. But it's often very good to use your power wheel for other things, just because you're one turn away, so you could just wait until you're sure where to place it.
yeah, if um if the matchup demands it, and you're looking for can carrier into an aggressive land, for example, you'd be much more inclined to go for that line, right? Of creating your fourth land early on, and then pivoting into your fifth land on turn 5 with the can carrier and having it be aggressive. Um, this spot, however, I'm pretty fine just dropping a map dealer, very non-committal, and then taking a draw afterwards. And I could have played a Shadow Silk Fairy as well. I could have also played an Airbot. But again, I think I'm just fine with taking one collection and keeping a lot of reactivity in hand, both in Faeria and in hand size, right?
Right. And so, with the map dealer on board, and as the mech players myself, this is very difficult for me to deal with, because I've got Ground Shaker as pretty much the only efficient answer here. Cypher's Wrath, really awful. Definitely don't want to pop a Hellfire on this, because like we were talking about earlier, this Hellfire represents pretty much guaranteed kill, and then the rest of the pings go towards face. But that's a 7 Faeria investment into 8 damage, which is a lot, but 7 Faeria is a very large investment. Yeah.
So keep in mind, you do have the Explore card, which allows for the Can Carrier, for example, to come down much earlier. So you could Can Carrier into an aggressive Explore, which it does deprive you of an aggressive creature that turn, but it gives you access to the aggressive land. So that can be a consideration as well.
Yeah.
If you are prized to taking a Can Carrier Detonate line here.
Yeah, and that's quite a tempo line, because like if I had that cannon carrier detonate, and I was really concerned with the tempo, I could drop that. I can get that cannon carrier up super aggressive, get that aggressive land, and then detonate there, which is definitely an option, but that's what we would call a tempo play, right? So if you hold on to the detonate even longer, you can potentially get more value. Though if you pop it early, it might be able to close out a win for you if they're not able to deal with all of that aggression. So that's kind of the balance you got to think about all the time.
I mean, obviously it wouldn't be good here, right? But
yeah,
if the board state would demand it, it's perfectly fine to take that line as well.
Another potential play is to use the Ground Shaker in more of an aggressive spot where you go explore at Mountain, which is okay depending on the matchup again, but then also got to realize that Ground Shaker is just kind of sitting here, and you got to invest more lands to get the Ground Shaker face, but it's not awful. A double neutral investment would allow that Ground Shaker to go face. But I'm just gonna keep passing here and let you talk about the lands building.
Yeah, there's not a ton to it after this point. You can consider taking the double collection. That's possible. So you would go in between the worlds, G1, G2, A1, A2. Those are perfectly fine to take as well, if you're playing a slower game. Again, drawing becomes very important with this deck. You wanna lean into that as much as possible, unless you unless you have a not unless you have insufficient economy, right? It shouldn't happen too often, because as you keep drawing, you'll generally find more usable stuff along the line. So you don't have to flame burst a 2 HP minion as often. Stuff like that. If you have the map dealer on board, again, just drawing, perfectly fine. At some point, you'll run into the issue of not having enough hand space. So you'll have to respond at some point, or take a proactive line at some point.
Yeah, and typically with other archetypes, if you've got a hand size this large, you're typically going to want to like keep pressing that +1 option to just like, being able to keep playing stuff. But as we've mentioned, this is more of a sort of combo sort of list where you need multiple pieces in your hand to work with. Even if you can't afford everything in your hand, you want the options available where you can go for efficient trades. Like, I would love to have both Flame Burst and Cypher's Wrath in my hand so that I could answer a 3 HP or a 2 HP. I'd rather not Flame Burst a 2 HP. Would rather wait until I get that more efficient removal option. But yeah, I think, is that about it for land placement?
Yeah. Again, there are some tricky lines that you can figure out with using the airbot and the can carrier.
Right.
But that depends really on the matchup and the current board state. Also, then being able to be formalized into a general rule of sorts. Shadow Silk Faeria generally does work best on the spots of F2, B2. That's why you want to have it most of the time, because then you're guaranteed to double collect usually. Starting off from D1 is fine as well, because you can branch out onto the other side, onto the side that you haven't developed any lands on.
Would there be a matchup you would go to the sides?
Rush, basically. So if you're being rushed, it's worth to just go to the defensive lands and play more of a standard red game plan. You can still tank a lot of face damage and then go for a detonate line on turn 4. It's viable.
Yeah, Cannon Carrier is pretty cool.
Most rush.
Yeah, Cannon Carrier can do some damage against Rush, although it is a little bit awkward, I guess, because they're going down the center. You're not going to have the center land, ideally. So you got to set up something a little trickier with the Cannon Carrier to get it face. But
well, you're mostly looking to defend with it if you're facing Rush. Another note, you want mountains to be available. So it can be good to use the Explore on C1, E1, so that you have your mountains at the adjacent tiles. Because your opponent will most likely build the center land, and then he will continue to step onto your lands. So your side lands won't be able to spot as many mechs as your other lands would be.
Right, yeah, and the well spots are good summoning spots anyways for, like, if you want to drop Cannon Carrier, Ground Shaker, or whatever. It lets you collect.
Yeah, essentially.
And even if you're running, like, Bomb Slingers in the list, it's still decent spots because your opponent's going to be stepping to the sides.
Yeah. That's about it, I think.
Okay, so I think we've talked this archetype to death. We could get into some actual matches.
Actual games.
And it is kind of nice having a third person for this, where you can, or where I can like view both players' hands or pilot the mech list, and then whoever's playing the mechs is kind of nice. But
maybe we can even take someone in from chat if they're willing.
Yeah. You gonna be
Um,
around for a bit, S? Or
I'll take a
anyone?
short break if you don't mind. So
Sure.
I'll
Yeah,
grab
well,
something to drink. And
str
then I'll be back. I'll be back shortly.
sure. And I might as well take a break as well. Stretch my legs, grab some snacks. And we can
Yeah,
let
yeah,
chat
yeah.
take a little bit of a break as well. And we'll be
That
back
had a
with
nice
some.
ring to it, by the way.
What did I say?
Stretch my legs, grab. You said something along the lines of stretch my legs, grab some snacks.
Stretch my legs,
And it,
grab some snacks.
it's, it's a real tongue twister if you stretch it out.
That's from all my
Anyhow,
poetry readings, yes.
yeah, yeah. Okay. I'll see you guys in a hot minute.
Alright, I'll take a quick break. Yeah, and we'll be back with actual matches. So stay tuned. Alright, welcome back everyone. We're ready to get into matches. So I think what we'll do, just to start, unless anyone from chat wants to participate, like JT or S, we'll just play for now. Maybe I'll start with the mech list. Do my best to pilot it, and then we'll swap over. Lizard can pilot, and then we'll figure out how to counter.
Yeah, I'll pick a weak matchup. So I'll start with flyers. That way I'll have an easier time showing off the strength of the deck.
Alright. And then, yeah, if you are sort of listening as a podcast format, this section is going to be quite difficult, but we're going to see how it goes. I'm going to try my best to sort of narrate what happens, and I think the more important pieces of this anyways is going to be sort of the certain lines that we need to take and such. So maybe that could be beneficial to be sort of talking about as well, so that the visuals aren't as important as the speaking.
Yeah, and you can actually do a lot of games of Faeria in your head if you're
If you're,
if you spend
yeah,
if you're deranged enough, if you spend too much time playing Faeria.
yeah, even I haven't
Um,
spent enough time playing Faeria for that. So starting in here, we've got Map Dealer, Flame Burst, Cannon Carrier. Map Dealer, of course, is an excellent card to keep. I think Flame Burst is pretty decent as well. Cannon Carrier is kind of a combo piece. I guess this wouldn't be a terrible keep as well.
yeah, but definitely viable to keep as well. Especially those flyers. Flame Burst is okay.
Yeah, and I'm
Does
more considering like a general keep. I didn't even consider the Flyers matchup, I suppose.
right. Um, so I think versus flyers, you do want to play for the for the combo more than you want to play for tempo. So
Right.
mm,
Yeah, you can get some really good combo clears off of the low HP creatures. The Flyers are a little bit, or they can get away from the lands, which means you kind of have to use like your own lands or airbots to hunt them down, but it's usually pretty manageable. The 3 HP is a little bit trickier, but if you can pair those up with ground shakers and things, that's good too. So I've started with that Central Land D1 with my mountain, and we're going to extend to one side with the map dealer onto C2 there.
which is
And
fair. Generally dodging side does quite well. I'll try and contest using the Ariana here.
we have an
Also, one of the reasons why I played Ariana later on is because I wanted to choose side essentially, right? I know I have to contest Max, and I know I want to do it with Ariana because I want to get value out of the body. I don't want to fall behind in card advantage here, so
Right, so
try
the
balance that.
emissary, yeah, the emissary comes down for Lizard on the opposite side of my land investment. Ariana going same side. Pretty huge for, or a huge thing to think about as the Flyers player. You really want that Ariana going same side as your opponent's land investment. So yeah, I think holding that's pretty cool. So now I have that Flame Burst option on the Emissary. I think that's a pretty good take, right? We take away this potential double collector that I'm not going to be able to answer for a while, I think. Especially when I've got double Hellfires in hand.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're taking that away, it gives me another establishment on the left side, right, potentially. Whereas otherwise I wouldn't be inclined to play more creatures onto the board. So there's some upside and some downside as well.
Yeah, that's true. We've got the Ariana to worry about, and our poor little map dealer can't deal with that, right? But yeah, I don't know. I think the Flame Burst is probably fine. 3 Faeria, 3 damage. We take away a double collector that could be difficult in the future. I do have to start thinking about this Ariana though, because he's going to be able to encroach on this map dealer, and and I'm just going to have to step this out of collections for a little bit. Oh, and he finds the Flash Wind, so the Ariana is actually going to take out my map dealer, unfortunately. So at this point we can probably just keep drawing. I guess actually Cannon Carry is another option, but then this plays into Soul Drain pretty harshly. So this could be an opportunity where I just hold my Faeria. Though this wouldn't be a terrible play, I suppose. We've got Cannon Carrier plus a Junk Feed in hand. So we could go for Cannon Carrier plus Junk Feet, and then we play out of that Soul Drain range, but that's a 9 Faeria investment for creatures, so I don't know how I feel about that. Takes us quite far away from Hellfire.
And that's one of the problems with using cards like the Flame Burst early, right? You're suddenly deprived of so many more options later on down the road. Sure, you took a great clear that turn. But effectively, what ended up happening is I made one additional desert, I played a Flash Wind. It was my entire turn. So even though you're denying me collections there, it probably isn't going to matter in the long run.
Yeah, that
you having 3 less Faeria to work with is such a big difference here.
Yeah, that's probably very true. And then something also I've noticed you have to keep large tabs on when you're playing the mech list is every Faeria that you invest is very impactful on the following turn or the following few turns, because you just have that much less to work with. Yeah, it's going to be a real tough struggle to come back on board just dropping the Cannon Carrier here, so I think we're actually just going to have to go for more cards and hope that we can get a good value clear on something in the future.
Yeah. Also note how my Faeria lined up this game. I'm now on 10, which means denying the collection wasn't really accomplishing a ton. Because now I'm able to develop 2 5 costs, which I would have been able to anyways, with or without the collection. And I wouldn't have been able to make any use of the effective 2 Faeria I would have gained this turn from collecting left side, right? So keeping thresholds in mind is very difficult, and planning ahead multiple turns, also not the easiest. So yeah, I do get a good placement here. I will be a bit cautious here with playing my Kaleem.
Gotta think about those future detonate plays.
Yeah. So I don't really want to clog it up if I can avoid it.
Yeah, if you are playing creatures against the mech list, it's good to kind of not put them next to each other where you can get a good detonate line. And by next to, that means like within 2 spaces oftentimes, because remember that airbot can get into tricky positions as well.
Yeah, yeah. So what happened here is I a desert on f5 from my point of view um with the
Right. So
Ariana.
yeah, B2 on our side here, where we extended the aggressive lines, or the aggressive lens, and the map dealer got taken. So now the Ariana is sitting on our mountain here.
And like I said earlier, I get to develop two 5 costs now, regardless of the collection of the emissary, which would have only added an additional 2. Um, and I'm able to get a pretty decent curve here. I'm also able to develop outside of any detonate range, and
Mm.
especially outside of any range of carrier. So for the cannon carrier, you'd have to build another mountain. Um, and there's no good mountain that you could build here. If you want to get close to Kalim or Champion, you have to make a choice, right? You can't get close to both.
Yeah. And the HPs are pretty good. These ones are going to be tough to contest for sure.
Mm.
I can make it. Yeah, I can make an attempt to try and contest this with like maybe a ground shaker or something. To be careful about the champion as well. That's just been played. Where champion. So if I drop a ground shaker also in range of champion, that's a potential spirit theft waiting to happen. It's gonna be a tough call with this hand currently. Yeah, unfortunately, ground shaker is not going to accomplish a ton. So we could wait again, trying to build up to that detonate. Our opponent here is quad collecting, which is quite a bit. I would love to block this space, but it feels quite vulnerable to that spirit theft. On the other hand, though, if the champion comes over, clears the ground shaker, it gets spirit thefted. Well, it's large stats to deal with, I suppose. Alternatively,
so
if that
being
comes
patient
up,
really pays
yeah,
off
that's
with the deck.
probably fine. Yeah, so I'm also looking at this. Kalim is going to step up, double collect, and then that brings him closer into the land, so maybe a detonate play could be pulled off a little bit better. I'm just going to take a draw here, see what we get.
Yeah.
We'll try and draw into some detonate combos. And accept the quad collect.
So Kalim is also one of the sturdier creatures that you can play in flyers.
Very strong into mono red stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Hello, Cat Sharp.
Definitely. And I'll keep drawing here. I'm trying to map out where I want to position my creatures here. I probably don't want to clutter too much, so I'll have to be aware of that. I think just stepping up could be fine. Or even just staying on the mountain could be fine.
Yeah, both options
Yeah.
valid because this mountain is preventing me from being able to play anything there.
I think I'll stay, actually.
Completely fair. You got a solid board position here. Can just build up Faeria like this. Now, unfortunately, I didn't draw the detonate. I'm on 9 cards, so I'm pressured into doing something here.
You still have Explore, right?
Yeah, so we can dump the Explorer. We also have that Junk Feet still, which can potentially be a combo piece to something big. Though it's quite tricky when there's not some damage we can dump on this Kalim in the form of like detonate, which would have been lovely on this turn.
You would have, yeah. But also, I
let's
think
see
I
if
played
this
around
goes
it
to...
pretty well, to my ability.
Yeah, I think what I'm gonna do, we're gonna invest... Ooh. Right, need to be careful with this. So, try for this. Hopefully I have enough... Ooh, yeah, I don't have enough land space for that, never mind. Right, yeah, so that's... Staying on the mountains really hurts because I can't, like, do junk feed stuff, right? But what I might do instead is just attempt to dump a sturdy collector here and hope for the best. Wait until the next turn. Yeah, so we can just drop a sturdy captain here. That's probably about it. I might want to look at, like... Well, I don't think I want to look at a Shadow Silk Fairy just because, again, that's 3 Faeria investment into doing nothing virtually.
Yeah.
Even if I'm afraid of this Cap 10 dying, I want this 3 Faeria to be going towards more removal tricks, especially like detonates and stuff.
The big problem for you is I've been able to match your speed here. While not losing a ton of board here.
Yeah, sitting at same Faeria counts, but you're up 2
yeah,
creatures.
Sorry, I was able to match your Faeria. No. Yeah.
And if there if there wasn't a Kaleem, it might be a bit more manageable in terms of the low stat numbers. But 6 HP Kaleem is so good into the red stuff.
It is.
Very great answer. So we need to look at really got a top deck that detonates soon, which hopefully is coming soon, but yeah, like I said, the junk feed play is nice, but with the limited mountain space, it kind of hurts a bit. I really wanted to do like a cannon carrier into junk feed or something into something else, and then we get 5/3, which can actually fight the Kaleem with the help of that ground shaker. Or fight this champion. Oof. We got the Celestial Tower. Oh, goes for face. Okay, very aggressive.
I'm taking this line here because mostly I can I could set up some amount of lethal here.
With the second champion there especially. Draw the airbot, but no detonate still, sadly. Detonate kind of needs to be my out here, I think. And don't draw into it, so that's pretty sad.
Yeah.
So we'll attempt for some Hellfire rips, but we gotta do some damage pings first. I guess just hit into stuff. We have a Ground Shaker to remove some pings for Hellfire potential. So how much is this? That's 14. Don't have quite enough for the both of those, or the 3 of those. 13 leaves me with 5 left. Also unfortunate that I can't block this champion line here. So I
Yeah.
guess we go for this plus Cypher's Wrath. Got 3 to spare then. Okay. We do this, we eat up as many numbers as we possibly can. Then I guess just let a Hellfire rip and hope that hits the area on a... Though that's not gonna matter. We have one more block we can do. Unless you got a removal trick up in there.
Okay. That was your big turn.
That was the big turn. Sad without the detonate. Detonate would definitely help with those cleanups a little bit more than the Hellfire would.
Yeah. So I by the way, I took the line because I have a fairly good out there.
I would, yeah, I probably would imagine so.
Although I'm only on 7 damage with the champion plus the follower. I was assuming one champion would connect that turn. I'm still confident in taking that because I know I can draw into over the top. I know I can draw into Barter, Flame Burst, right? I can theft the Shaker and then do the Shaker for the last ping of damage. Since you're not running any healing, I think that's a fine line to take.
Yeah, the barter, having barter just gives you that flame burst potential lethal. So you can afford to lose complete board control as long as you get me to 3.
And even though it's not in my hand currently, I think it was a fine line to take overall. I'll take a draw here though. And actually, now that I have this lined up, I'll the Soul Drain. Take the clear here. And pivot back into collection, I think. It's also important to know when you can afford to play the board, and when you're better off doing something like this.
Free little collector over there. Yeah, and the very true point to make. You got me down to 8 life, which could incentivize like pedal to the metal, but setting up a strong board also good. I'm still struggling, like even the singular Mentor Rider coming down. What do I do against this? I'm gonna struggle a lot with that, and I think this might just be probably the end, because that was my big blowout turn. There was a risk, and it didn't pay off, unfortunately.
Well, essentially I forced you into a position where you had to respond to my pressure, right? And your response was sadly, for you, not very efficient. And the fact that it was not that efficient allowed me to pivot back into playing for board.
Yeah. So we'll make a cheeky attempt here. I'm gonna drop a junk feed on top of this, which should line up the numbers.
Very cheeky, yeah. Lines up well.
We get that excellent 4/6 stat line into the flyers here. Right, so yeah, with the Manta Rider, we responded with that Airbot. That becomes a 3/3 with the junk feed. Our Captain was a 3/5 from hitting into the Kalim, and now we can boost that attack to fight the 4 HP champion damaged by that Ground Shaker.
But for me, on the flip side here, I'm sitting at 9 Faeria again.
Yeah, it's only an uphill battle from here for the poor little mech player. But that really just came down to the early turns there, where Lizard was able to develop a massive board.
You are getting quite a board here.
Though that Manta Rider's gonna cause some troubles still.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I can also play a lot of my 2 HP stuff now because you're not in range of Ground Shaker or even second detonate combo.
Right. Yeah, and Detonate would
Allows me to get
be
down a Demon Wing.
excellent. This is so rough. I guess a Detonate top deck here would be nice. Though not very game winning. Alternatively, I can go for +1. I could dump 2 airbots here just to get the stats. We just go for some swarm plan.
But the problem is you're not winning by just going 1-for-1 with me.
I'm not. Though don't have a lot of options.
The health doesn't really matter on the airbots right now. Neither does the attack because all of my creatures have
yeah.
2 HP. And even value trading doesn't really look too enticing for me. Yeah, it's pretty over from now on.
Yeah, I think so. We'll probably just we draw into the gift to steal. Nice.
Oh, who put that card in there?
Oh dear. And you had that charge tower anyways, actually. So this was probably a poor move. But hey, that's alright.
Ooh, I can actually get a treasure. It's fun.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we go for the Ariana take.
Ooh.
Actually getting a treasure.
Actually getting a treasure.
And so at this point I've got a 5/7 captain, which is large, but not accomplishing a whole lot. Manta Rider's destroyed now. We can get a value trade, but oh, we get a second Celestial Tower. Okay. Yeah, I think this is time for a surrender. We'll move on to the next one.
Yeah. We can swap if you want, or we can try one more.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do one more and then we'll do a swap. So, yeah, though I don't think holding the Flame Burst would have helped in that match anyways, just due to my future top decks there. But it's definitely a consideration, holding your resources.
Yeah. It ended up forcing you into a Hellfire that wasn't really great.
Mm-hmm. So we got the map dealer start again here. Also got that airbot into cannon carrier. Yeah, so I mean, decent combo pieces again. I guess I can keep this. The detonate is something I definitely want to be looking more towards, but hey.
You can even keep a detonate in the mulligan.
Yeah.
And if do that as well.
Yeah, if I had that, that would be nice, but okay, so we got that Demon Wings start again. We'll just continue with that Mountain Center. And the Ariana start as well.
Again, yeah.
Okay, so this is going to be real tough for my map dealer to find land to stand on. But, Right. So we could go towards the side that Demon Wing is on, which is a little bit more aggressive. If we go to the Ariana side, then the Ariana gets to hit into anything in the future that we play there, which is preferable, but yeah, we also might get one extra collection going to Ariana's side.
Yeah. You're also not always priced into playing map dealer.
Is there not a...
In this case, I would set up collection left side, contest, not contest the Ariana, but you know, set the map dealer there. Then leave the Demon Wing for now.
Yeah, I think this one makes sense. Just setting the map dealer to the same side as Demon Wing. But what would be the advantage to holding on to the map dealer in maybe a different scenario?
Well, the big advantage here would be you're essentially getting more collections later on. So you're saying if my map dealer gets traded by the demon in the near future, I'll be down a collection. I'm only getting one collection out of it. If I can line up a clear on the Demon Wing, I'll get more collections with the map dealer, so I'd be more inclined to play it early on.
Right, I guess that's true.
It depends how many pieces of the combo you have in hand, and how early you want to go for the detonate. So that you can keep in mind as well.
Right, that's a good point. Yeah, because if we can get a big detonate clear, then maybe that map dealer can actually do some stuff. But unfortunately, no detonate there. So I think I'm just gonna go for the land on B1 to get that a little bit more collections potentially out of this map dealer.
Yeah, fair.
And we'll just pass from here.
Also possible to take a neutral there.
Doesn't
have to be a mountain.
Right, we do have that explorer still. I'm
playing very conservatively here. Not investing anything until you commit more to the board.
Makes sense. We'll just take a draw from this point. No detonate or anything in hand. Now I want to save this map dealer, I think, so I'm going to drop an explorer. Snuggled up to my orb on C1. Take a step back, and this might get a third collection even. We'll squeeze all the life we can out of this little map dealer. But nope, we're getting full Ash-winded.
Yeah, unfortunately no further collection.
Ooh, bloatfly as well. That is nasty.
Yeah, so some pressure is here being put on.
Okay, so we found the detonate. Not a great detonate line at the moment. I'd much rather try to clean these things up a bit more efficiently, but I don't know how I'm gonna manage with this. I definitely need to take this bloatfly out somehow, which may just be a flame burst.
No, I don't think you have to. Like, if you think about it,
I guess if you just drop it.
More bloatflies, it's okay for you because you have the detonate lines.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's a bit bad for you because your mountain is occupied now.
Mm-hmm.
So that small decision last turn, or actually the turn before, of putting a mountain there to collect, versus using the explore does matter here.
Fair.
So it really comes also down to future land placement and setting up multiple turns in advance, which is a hard thing to do and to learn.
Right, that's fair.
Also gives you the mountain, in this case, the mountain on C1 does open up a can carrier line all the way up to C6 on my part. So especially if you're playing versus flyers, the center mountain won't yield as much results as any of the C or E lines.
Right, and yeah, the flyer being able to step on the mountain's pretty impactful as well. I think we'll just go for a draw here. Hope for the best from that. Okay. I think we can set up some type of play next turn. Though Lizard's on 19 Faeria here, pretty nasty.
I am, yeah.
Okay, so the emissary comes down in a defensive position on c6, which means that blocks an easy cannon carrier line for me to nab one on the land there. What I could do is attempt to cannon carry on the opposite side.
Right.
Though I need to answer
That
this.
means your carrier doesn't really connect either way.
Yeah.
The demon wing. So it really it's really a tricky position for you. And mostly the land placement here plays a big role.
Yeah, definitely. We could do is there's a line here. We'd have to use an airbot. It's a lot of resources potentially, but we do have that junk feat, so we could go for a big line here potentially. Airbot here.
Oh, nice, yeah.
We get an aggressive mountain here. We airbot to the right side to kill off this Ariana. Right, this is about to get cleared, so let's see if I have enough for this. That's 10, 11, 12. Yeah, that's all my Faeria. That's a lot, but we're gonna drop a ground shaker aggressive on this space. Deal that 1 damage that we need only, but that's a thing. It's kind of unfortunate I couldn't do this a bit more efficiently, but hey, whatever. We'll drop a cannon carrier here. We'll drop a detonate, and then we'll drop a junk feat on top. And that kind of pays off for all of the huge investment of mechs that I just invested, I guess.
Yeah.
Not that the stats matter that much.
If you would have swapped the carrier and the shaker, you could have killed my emissary.
Yeah, I did not consider that. The true carrier could have just simply yeah, I could have got a full clear there. Yeah, you're right. Mech line's tricky. It would put the
very tricky.
Yeah, it would put the ground shaker back a bit passively. But full clear, best clear. Though honestly, in this position, well, yeah, I mean, killing the creature for free is killing the creature for free.
Yeah, yeah. It's still not a bad position, but killing the creature for free is killing the creature for free.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. Can't say I'm super happy with this. But I'm also not too worried as well.
Mr. 20 Faeria.
Mr. 20 Faeria over here. Good thing I have the Ariana, which...
Yeah, the Ariana's a massive Faeria sink.
Yeah, yeah. This is also the spot where your from hand removal like Cyphers becomes much better.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if I had like double Cyphers or something, we could like get a kind of value hit on... Well, is it really a value hit when 3 damage doesn't make a difference?
It's fine, it's fine. Let's say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does get much better after these combo turns. It becomes well, it's basically a game of you know, re-establishing the resource battle, right?
Mm.
So you've just cleared my entire board. I'm still ahead in Faeria. But you need to equalize that, and that's when you know, denying my collections puts you further ahead.
Right. Yeah. True. I need. Yeah. Uh, Unfortunately, my answer is double flame burst, and I don't know if that's particularly where I want my flame burst to be going.
Not really,
Um,
no.
there was an option to maybe send this airbot a bit more aggressively, go double flame burst, go super aggressive with the ground shaker, and then we're contesting all of your lands but one. Though, yeah.
You can check the line and try if it is enough. Can't really tell for sure yet, but
This would be a lot of my hands. I think honestly I want to go for the Shadow Silk Fairy, where I have a pretty decent sort of opening here. So I might even take a draw.
yeah. So if you're having Shadow Silk here, consider taking out the Demon Wing because that's the one that's collecting left side.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I'm just gonna take a draw and hope for Cypher's Wrath.
You could have collected with the Shaker as well. Just not step in range of the Ariana.
I was considering like a double neutral in between wells. That was an option because the Shadow Silk also gives you some net value, but
Yeah.
That is
I wouldn't have mind the Shaker collecting. Again, because you're trying to equalize the Faeria discrepancy.
True. What I could do now is maybe step the ground shaker back. We got that airbot in that position. We really want these guys going aggressive though. Fairy here. Yeah, I mean this goes up to 3 HP. I think it's fine. Although I probably do. It's really costly flame burst, but I think we do want to keep the collections clear on this side. Keep this airbot collecting. Yeah. This can hopefully establish collections for me for a while. Hopefully.
That's fair, yeah.
Next damage ping, I get a 6/5 little mech, which can value trade. Yay.
I think I have to seize the moment here.
Seize the moment. We got one thing I did play into Celestial Tower, I guess, with this mech step up.
Well, I think it's fine. Not really worried about clearing your board here.
We going face. Fair enough. Yep, so putting me on 10 life, which makes champion a little bit more spooky. Would you ever consider Firestorm in this list over the Hellfire? Is Hellfire doing more for you?
I think Hellfire is doing more. Usually, you're already able to punish clusters effectively.
Right.
It would be okay to have a Firestorm here, but even then, you need Firestorm plus Ciphers for my champion, right?
So we're gonna have to sidestep you. This fairy needs to collect, I guess. we can simply sidestep here. Even though I wanted that 6-4 going aggro, maybe I need to see what I get here first to make a better decision. We might want to block face a little bit. I don't know.
So by now you have probably Flameburst Wrath, and
Yeah.
and you can take out the champion, which is huge. You need to be able to answer champion. On the flip side, that does allow me to pivot a bit more into playing for board.
Yeah, so the options I'm looking at here is the Flameburst Wrath that I have in hand for the champion, or we could use Ulani with a neutral to defend against the champion, find some other type of clear on it in the future. One issue, well, double neutrals don't help me a ton since this airbot's already collecting for me.
I do believe the Flameburst Wrath is okay here. Since you're really collecting, like you're quad collecting, right? Essentially that turn. You can even forgo one collection left side if you want. Force me to invest the tower.
Right, this is about to get to 5 HP, both the airbots. So that's another thing to consider. Maybe I want to boost this to 6 HP to fight these Manta Riders. 9 damage. Right, you probably want to hit into the Ground Shaker. Right.
Another line you could take is stepping the airbot back to B2. Sorry, to F2.
Yeah, I'm actually considering this one because I think this airbot is probably not going to be doing much. And we need to block this collection from coming down.
You're trying to value one collection on your side versus denying me the collection and the better positioning with the Manta Rider.
Yeah, I don't think collecting myself is really doing that much, but I like this. I think that Manta Rider is not going to get answered very easily. Ulani can be played around kind of easily. Could also just go in there. Right, this champion on board's pretty spooky. Let's just answer this. I might actually go for lands anyways, though. Save this airbot's life a little bit. Save the airbot life. Yeah, this would require another neutral, but I think that's fine. We just go for... yeah, this land here. And this land allows me to threaten this right side, which I might need in the future from future champions and such.
Small mistake though. I think I would have blocked versus Flash Wind.
Block versus Flash Wind. Block which?
I'm getting the hit here.
Gets the hit anyways, right? Yeah, I guess any mobility trick could have done something. Right. Fair enough. I needed to block anyways, I guess. Alright, so now it's very spooky.
Yes. We've entered spook territory. I think I'll even play another tower here.
The second tower?
Just to trade off my Rihanna.
That's pretty good. I don't have a very nice trade into this Manta Rider anymore. Though that's all your Faeria spent.
It is all my Faeria spent, yes. But potentially a treasure could lead me to victory here. Especially with the second tower.
True.
So I'm thinking next turn, if you're not trading the Manta Rider here, actually if you're trading the Manta Rider here, but not the defensive one, I could try to squeeze in an aggressive land. The Ariana nets me the what's it called? The 5-cost deal 5 Theory Orb. Right.
The
If I get
orb.
that and yeah, if I get it down next to your face, that's also lethal for me.
Yeah, this is very tricky. And also I invested my land into left side with this ground shaker. And now he's kind of doing nothing. I had to invest more lands with this ground shaker, so that land investment was potentially a big mistake then.
I think the bigger mistake was just giving me the avenue to face early on.
Yeah. Was another thing. I could sacrifice my junk feet here. Even though 6 HP is really nice on all these units here. But
I know.
I don't know if I have much of a choice, because I gotta answer this Manta Rider somehow.
Yeah.
So either I sack...
That's also why I took the line, because it does make it awkward for you.
So either I sack the 7/5 mech here into the Manta Rider. But that doesn't really matter, because then I have to value hit with the 5/5, and then the HP no longer matters with the junk feet. So I guess we just take with the junk feet, unfortunately. And maybe I should be considering draws. I really gotta focus on board control here now, I think. I want to invest these lands into Ground Shaker, but... I don't know...
You're one movement trick away from dying.
Yeah. This goes to 3 HP, thankfully. Something like this. Let's see. 3... And 2 movement tricks also is very deathly. I could go for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Right now with this setup I just need 1. Because I have a double tower. Assuming I can clear the airbot with my emissary, I then have the free path with the Manta Rider.
Yeah, I think
tower and movement.
What I'm doing here is flame bursting the emissary, so that it keeps you off of that collection. This one, then we only have 1 to deal with, which hopefully pans out. So I'll step this aside. Oh, I also need to step this 5/5 across though. With this, okay. So let's be extremely defensive here. I'm going to invest in another land, I think.
Okay.
So we block, and we come across. And Ariana's just gonna keep coming down. We find the treasure. Show me the carpet.
Treasure has been found.
Okay. So, can probably just draw from here. We have this potentially. Hellfire not really worth it. Especially with the towers on board, Hellfire is really bad when your opponent's got structures on board.
Yeah.
We'll go for a draw.
You can try Hellfire and hope to clear the Manta.
Yeah. It's an option, but I think I'm going to take the Wrath instead. Step over to collect. This can potentially step in range just fine. I think. Where else does this go? Yeah, I'll just do this. Drop another body.
Yeah.
Now, one thing, I might want this sturdier life guy blocking my center because of the Manta Rider with 1 mobility trick plus Soul Drain Spirit Theft, which is a lot, but... Well, also 1, 2, 3... Right, you can also do it this side. Right. 1, 2, 3... Soul Drain,
So theft
movement.
doesn't really matter because I have theft on the map dealer.
Yeah, I'm looking at the map dealer now, which is just even better for you. So I might even have to sidestep both of my creatures left. And then 1, 2... Yeah, I think this works out better.
Luckily for me, I did find the carpet here.
Oh, okay. Fine.
Fine. I do need to collect though, I think.
You've got 3 carpets, do you? Move once. Flash Wind once, Flash Wind twice, Flash Wind... I don't think you need to collect.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I don't think there's a way I could block that because you have the option to collect here.
Yeah.
Nice.
That was a good game though.
Yeah, that was pretty solid.
Really showcased some of the strength of flyers, as well as how punishing small mistakes can be when playing
Definitely.
Mechs. Or any deck, really. If you're not cautious.
Yeah, and Mechs is no easy list to pilot, but I think we'll let you pilot the Mechs now.
Yeah, I'll just take 1 minute, and then I'll be
Yeah,
right
no
back.
worries. Unfortunately, we won't be able to see Lizard's hand on this one, but that's okay. We'll get a general idea for it, and also an idea on how to counter the Mechs list as well. There are many things to learn. And I think this series that we're kind of doing right now with these workshop streams, I think this is sort of a better, almost like a brain vomit of information, but in a structured way. Whereas, you know, I'm making this advanced series where I'm trying to really refine the topics and get a decent chronological order. This series can be something to latch onto with your taste buds in the meantime.
Though we have done an awful job of selling Mechs right now.
Yes, I mean, yeah, I would love for Lizard to try it out because, like I said, I'm no master at Mechs. It's not a list that I have piloted many times in the past. Especially not Lizard's variant. Lizard's variant is all in on that sort of mech combo, right?
Well, it's also more of a sales pitch for flyers, really, and how flexible that deck is with the game plan.
Fair.
Yeah, like just last game, it went so well for me from connecting once with the Demon Wing to playing that whole game out just by pivoting into aggression. Yeah.
Yeah, who knew not having land requirements to step on made for a very strong list.
Well, yeah, but also like the hitting your face 4 times and then winning the game is really good.
Yeah, that 5 attack is a really good number.
There's not a lot of decks that can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow, I'll play some Mechs. You'll switch to flyers maybe.
Alright. We saw the Flyers match. Maybe we do something else, like... Well,
Well,
I guess we haven't seen from
you can
this
also do
perspective,
blue.
but... I was thinking blue... We were mentioning or angry and how they're not very reactive. How mechs could benefit in that regard.
Sure. Whatever you'd like to showcase here.
I'm not actually
pretty
sure.
confident. Well, not confident, but I've played the list a fair bit more than you did. So
We'll go for blue jump. It'll have a hopefully nice balance of... I'm not actually sure what's in this list, but I'm assuming it's a standard blue jump.
Right.
Alright, so I'm going second. I'm going to toss away this expensive Tide Lord in hopes of something more playable in these turns.
These turns. Okay.
Alright, so we get the mountain center start. We'll start with a lake center.
Lake center, you say, huh?
Yes. The mountain is a nice stepping land for the blue jump player, I suppose.
It is, yeah.
Now, one thing I could do is actually threaten your side, especially with this Triton Warrior here.
Triton Warrior, you say, huh?
Yeah, we can just dump the Triton Warrior for now. Threaten this land spot, threaten the merchant, not the map dealer spot.
That's fine by me. Just let you do the extra work.
Oh. Okay. So we're getting on to turn 4. Have to start worrying about that detonate. Don't have to worry about detonate until turn 4 hits. What I might do is go for some like tempo aggressive play here, where we actually sunken tower the mountain, I guess.
Quite
yeah,
expensive.
This allows me to step, and then we get...
Because with that aggressive flank, you're setting me up for a pretty good detonate line.
It's pretty good detonate, but I don't think you can clear this creature. I believe. We're gonna try for it. I'm gonna drop my Aurora backwards so that it doesn't play into like mountain produced here.
Yeah, that's all right.
Though the mountain between the walls is probably better for you if it's a cannon carrier. Can get the detonates on both.
If it's a cannon carrier, yeah.
I don't know if this tempo line is gonna pay off so well. Another option is
really bad.
Being very more passive with the creatures.
Doesn't look super enticing. Again, I just have to figure out a good line here for me.
Yeah, you do have that cannon carrier. How do you
I think I have a pretty decent
clear
line,
this efficiently?
Actually. Just take this.
Oh.
Then I'll lock you into place.
Oh no.
Drop a carrier.
Carrier 2. Oh no. Okay. Yeah, the Yolani is annoying. Rough.
you shouldn't really be able to contest the 4-2 here, which is why I took that line. You can take a command here, that's fine.
Yeah, not
It's really
reasonably.
awkward.
I can't set up anything as a follow-up to the command,
Yeah.
because the Sunken Tower is kind of in an awkward spot. Hmm.
Aggressive Ninja Toad would have been okay here.
This. Kind of locked into building land here if I want to collect.
Yep.
Okay. I might actually have to take the mech, I don't know. Nah. We'll just go for a collection.
Okay.
Okay, so the tempo line didn't pay off, sad.
You forgot. You also forgot the hit here. Assuming that's what you wanted to do.
I don't know if it really matters. Right, you've got... if I take the hit, you can make it clear anyways. More. I guess this allows you to just stay here for a while, but I'm happy to collect, right?
Well, there's also a lot of pressure going on.
Okay, let's try and play some things. Yeah, I've backed myself into a pretty big corner here now. I think this is gonna be real rough. We can... I guess we'll go in between the wills, something like this.
Sort of this awkward state where you...
I forgot I was getting that buff. That's not good. Oh dear.
I'll happily take that.
Yeah, that's not good. Okay.
Battletoads. Okay.
Okay, that's not good. Do this, you're happy to... Okay, fine. You get a free trade. Swaps around the cannon carriers, so the 2-4 is threatening that poor little 2-2. We'll just keep taking draws. Um, could go for something like that. What do we got? Would love to take these collections away as much as possible, but
I know.
it's gonna be a little rough.
It's awkward. You really don't want to invest the humbling as well. Like, ugh.
Yeah, I've got a command here which can potentially do something. So what I'm thinking is... Oh, right. Actually, I don't even need to do that. Another awkward thing is playing into more detonate things, so... It's a big airbot detonate for you. But you only got 3 cards.
I do, but I haven't played any of them yet, so...
Yeah.
Chances are likely they're either removal or some...
Detonate's
Yeah, I mean...
getting likely. We're on 22.
The airbot I probably would have played, right? At some point.
I don't. Would you have? Because you detonate didn't need to come down. So well, I guess you could have. Yeah, on this side already.
Right.
All right, we're gonna try for something like this. Take a value hit at least, and pass from there.
Okay.
Very vulnerable to airbot, but you do have to build a land in order to get that trade, and that means you need to have both in hand. It's a real possibility, but
I'm trying to map out what I want to do here. Could take a detonate line.
It's probably only worth it with the air bot, right? You take a free...
I do have the junk feed as well, so...
Right, you take a free hit on the Ninja Toad. The trainer, which has just kind of been sitting there. Man, this was a, like, 7 fairy investment creature.
Yeah. Was quite a bit. I have to be a bit cautious if I want to position that right. This works, I think.
Okay. So we'll have to take a draw here. Junk feats. Pretty annoying if I want to deal with that 5-3.
Yep.
Very unfortunate.
I probably could have also waited another turn, but I think it was okay to take the clear. Since I am threatening 6 face damage. Potentially.
Yeah, the junk feat's nice for that extra pressure. Gotta think about where I want this guy. The aggressive man's also spooky from, like, if a ground shaker comes down or something.
Yeah.
I'm gonna struggle to find aggressive options as well. I don't know. I kind of want to humble the junk feet, but at the same time, I don't know.
That seems expensive.
It seems very expensive. Okay. That's about all I got for now.
Mm. I got a decent Hellfire here, which I think I'll
Really?
take.
Pick the Hellfire there? Okay.
Of course, with that outcome, I'd always take it, but the reason why it's good here, I think, is because I potentially clear your collectors, and these are really important to clear.
So yeah, I think I'll surrender this one. It's gonna be a rough one to come back on. Okay.
Yeah, early temple line didn't pay off.
No, it was pretty bad.
Did have a great start though with the Faeria and then with Maker follow-up.
Yeah. We can do that matchup again.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. We will play to the Mechs game plan then. Oh, I love all these aggressive potential lines though. I think we can keep this opener still anyways.
Mechs also love aggressive lines.
Yes.
So if your opponent plays them, that is.
Alright, I'm forced to pick a side here, unfortunately. That's alright. Right. I suppose I could have played a sunken tower there.
Where I think I go airbot here.
Into blue, it's not bad because I don't have many options for it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you're probably looking to collect left side anyhow. If you're trying to switch side here, I think I'm fine as well. Because you really don't want to trade the 3-2 into my airbot as well. Like,
yeah, I was supposed to play
you're
this.
Essentially depriving yourself from an enemy well collection as well. Like.
I was supposed to play the sunken tower last turn.
Oh, you had one, okay.
I
mean, not necessarily, right?
I think it would have been pretty good with my current hand.
Okay.
But
because sunken tower is really expensive, right? You generally want to wait with it. If it's not a creature you're investing to Faeria in.
It is, and it's going into more like tempo lines once again, I guess.
Yeah. Like there are some great spots for tower. But in this matchup, I don't think it's the early game where you want to have your towers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just sitting there, menacingly.
Alright, I'll throw up a tower for this one, I guess. No Cypher's Wrath has come down yet, that's nice.
But I did keep pretty much all of my hand, so I kept 2 cards actually. No, actually, I think I kept 3, yeah. So full keep on my part. Chances are one of those is a detonate.
I kept a full keep as well, yeah. Yeah, unfortunately nothing much I can do about the airbot. Not really a point in fighting it because I don't have the tools to right now. But we will play a little bit more conservatively than last game. We won't invest everything. And gotta watch out for those cannon carrier lines.
Yep.
So watching those open land spaces. Not great in this position with the 7/7, but gotta watch out for my 2 life guys. Ooh. What if?
I'm listening.
What if Tide Lord takes Airbot here?
What if Tide Lord takes Airbot?
What if?
So that means you have a second tower?
Yes.
Ugh.
It is very expensive, but we
That's
stop.
4 Faeria.
We stop a double collector, right?
You stop a double collector?
We get
4
a
Faeria.
collection. 3 Faeria, right? We get a collection.
3, okay, sure.
We step on the mountain, which isn't that important because you have still another mountain to build. The Tide Lord gets in an aggressive spot. I don't know. It's not that bad.
Again, think about the thresholds here. I'll be at 17 next turn. Actually, I'm at 19 with the Explore.
Yeah, I can
Probably not being relevant.
I
this
can probably
stage.
answer that airbot in the future anyways, I
You can
guess.
try it. But yeah, I'm far above all of the important thresholds here.
Thinking about what else is like relevant with this turn though, we can develop Mystic Beast instead of going for the airbot, but then I mean we can just wait out the detonates also, hang on to our tools, but with the double sunken tower our lands are stuck a little bit.
Yeah.
I'd have to build another
Blue
land.
doesn't have the best way. Like Blue doesn't have the best way of playing reactive. You need a creature on board for your Frogifies, your Humblings to be of any use. And you don't really have that much of a win con like Yellow does in, you know, setting up cheeky lethals. Blue doesn't really do that. It's much more fair in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. I want to do the line, but it's I can't find any way where I can actually get a steppable land afterwards, which sucks. I'd have to block my lands with the towers.
It's a bit of a dead end, yeah.
Let's just try to set up something else. We'll just go for F-Ace it and drop a Mystic Beast. Go for a slower attacking line. That one... Yeah, that should work fine. Yeah, the biggest issue with this line of taking the airbot is also just I give up my collection land and I really have to invest something extra into keeping that land alive or reproducing another land.
Yeah.
This also pressures you to do something with the trainer because he's also threatening the airbot anyways, right?
A bit, yeah. Not by a ton, though. Could still keep drawing, but at some point I'll have to do something. That's true.
Yeah, you gotta play one. I guess you have the Explorer, so that's something. I also didn't necessarily have to play the Mystic Beast here. My Tide Lord should be able to collect just fine for me, and I do open up this very juicy in-between spot for detonates. You know, detonate
Yeah.
into Flame Burst or something, but then the Tide Lord's still alive, I don't know. Don't know if it's worth it.
Oh, usually I would be running out of time by now.
That was good to note
Those
also.
detonate lines are really complicated.
Yeah, we've been thinking through the turns quite extensively, and you don't always have this time to think.
It's definitely a plus side. Not great. I don't have great lines. I have some lines.
I am grateful for a 5 HP at least over other things.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think I even play the detonate here, as weird as that sounds.
I'm not... Yeah, like, with the 7/7 in the back, the Mystic Beast doesn't need to be cleared right now, right? It's not really doing anything.
Yeah. I think I'm just inclined to take out the Triton Trainer. Again, I don't really have a great follow-up either. Like...
That's fair.
Ah, that's so strange. Hmm. Like I'm trying to figure out where my mountain goes, and it's not as easy. It isn't.
Right.
And I think I'm inclined to play my Captain here. Again, I don't want to give you any land to step on.
Yeah, that's true. Captain could potentially play into Humbling Vision as well.
Well, it's a forecast. It's a cheap investment, right?
Yeah, that's true. Though my 4 power is nice into it, right?
Right, yeah. Just play it here. This way, I force you to make a land, right?
Yeah, I didn't have Humbling Vision, but I just top decked it now. But yeah,
Right,
I
but
do.
even if you're investing a Humbling, you're still leaving your creature vulnerable, right? Like,
yeah, I've got to invest something into killing this, and this puts this down to 4 HP, which is a lot more manageable than 5. You got those 2 damage thresholds, right?
yeah, and you're also depleting your Faeria, so you're 9 left. I think it was really important for me to play the mountain right and play a bit conservatively here. Like I said, because I want to force you make another to make another land to trade my
yeah,
Captain
left from
here.
our perspective. Yeah. Yeah, we don't want a land that I can step on. Right. And normally with blue jump lines, you could take some aggressive, like, movement trick onto opponent's land, onto build lake. But honestly, lakes in my opponent's space here aren't that great when detonate is a threat, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, let's... I think I can draw here. Ooh.
Drawing is really important because this matchup is all about card advantage.
And I have a water Ellie in hand, which I may want to use as that investment. Though,
right,
I kind of am forced into humbling taking this, I
water
think.
elemental is so bad in blue jump, like it's one of the worst cards, I think.
Really? Well, yeah, it's more of like it's very for tempo, I guess.
Yeah, but like you're ramping into a Tide Lord, right? But this game
Yeah, it's very like
really didn't matter too much.
Yeah.
Sometimes to get the Mystic Beasts, that's fine as well. But yeah, at some point you'll have to play cost 3/3s.
Mm.
Which, yeah, not too great.
Let's go for that. I may want to detonate things exist. So we could step onto this land to prevent like a cannon carrier taking over my land, I guess. Because cannon carrier can still take this well on my right side, which could be tricky with a ground shaker. But I think
I do have that.
Yeah, I think the cannon carrier up here next to my Mystic Beast is a little more devastating.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It is. So right now I'm getting a lot of benefits here.
Yeah, the 7/7's also in an aggressive position, which is nice.
Yeah.
I could have used my Sunken Terror Charge potentially to knock the mountain away.
10. I have to count a bit, sorry. 20. Okay. Exactly it. I think now is the time where I can take a good tempo clear. Because it lines up so well.
Oh, we get to see the 5th land here. Right.
We do.
Ground shaker up in my face. Ooh, junk feed's nice.
Junk feed is nice. Detonate.
Ouch.
I think I'm even inclined to take a flame burst here.
On
I could just body block with Ulani. That also works.
Right, because I can just switch to an aggressive line here, ignore... I don't know if I have the follow-up for that. You still had 17, but maybe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty good. You only have one card in hand, so that's one thing to consider. I can go for potentially greedier clears, maybe. We can definitely want some more collections, probably. Want to focus on that. We'll give an extra junk feet buff for that, I guess, but what can I do?
You can jump on the neutral, trade with command, I suppose. That's your line, right?
Command doesn't let me value trade, right?
On the 5/3.
I'm eyeing a Frogify. If we take this,
Okay.
then we're still playing into... well, like, I can't produce anything more with that Ground Shaker on board, right? If
Right,
we go...
because, I mean, you could actually on the tile where the tower is now.
Right. I think... Let's see, how much do I have? We're at 10, 11. Would love to have 12, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Gonna lose a little bit of board presence for this, maybe?
If you want to play for bot, I think you have to retake left side. If you try to maybe take a trade on the carrier right side, it doesn't really work, I think.
Yeah, aggressive lines aren't great either. I have a Colossus in hand, but I need this Tide Lord to go aggressive if it crashes my game plan. And that's not going to work so well. So I think we...
block that.
Yeah, I think we're kind of forced to do something over on this side. Optionally, I could just not even Frogify here. Just straight take the clear. Since Frogify is so expensive. The options are... Either I have a 2 HP Tide Lord, which is easy to remove with the top deck, or I develop more aggressive things like Colossus, which maybe I like better. I should have thought
so
about
far
this.
you've only seen what from me? A shaker and a shaker burst and a detonate. So, have some top decks. Okay.
I mean, okay, that's a top deck, but it's better than a Frogify, I guess. Really weak to Shaker, but hey, whatever. We will humble. And then...
In these situations, it's also important to keep track of collections, right? So I have 3 collections coming up, which means I get to double draw for Shaker. Whereas if I had only only double collection here, I'd have to +1, and it would have to be a top deck.
True, yeah, that is... Yeah, I didn't consider that. Double draw is definitely a consideration. True. So the other line there was Battletoads plus Colossus, which is potentially better. Definitely not into if there's a Shaker. And those Battletoads are really tough to detonate stuff, but...
You're probably losing anyway to second detonate.
Yeah,
no way
I don't
around
know.
it, I think.
We'll dump the Toads in a spot where I can't be detonated, but... This does not help me capture right side here.
Sadly not, no.
Okay. Sure, I think this game might be lost, so we'll try just some lines. We will go for defensive Colossus. I'd rather draw
this is another
here.
great spot for a map dealer, by the way. If you have an airbot in double collection, you can then grass the airbot and still maintain that double collection spot with the map dealer.
Right.
So essentially, I've freed myself up another 4/4 here on the board, like summoning an airbot basically. I freed you
Yeah.
from the collection duty.
Yeah.
Keep drawing. Keep stepping. I'm pretty decent here. Because now you're like position where you really have to answer the airbot.
That is a lot of pressure.
At least, yeah, at least consider it.
So we can Sunken Terror clear this, I guess. Play into Ground Shaker again. That's okay.
It's really expensive though, right? If you Sunken Tower there. Yeah, I mean, you can go for it, but it's
I think it's still worth it.
it's
We
two
get
Faeria that you're not using to defend.
well, collection, clear off your collection, and then I don't know. The 4/4 is like not super. Like we can answer with just
But
a
again,
simple creature, right?
I'm on 12 Faeria here. I'm not really in a position where I need the collection.
Yeah. I don't have much else going for me though.
Yeah, okay. No doubt it was a tough position to begin with. Oh.
Oh.
Okay, I'm not getting another one.
We need a fairy.
But I am getting a shaker.
Oh joy.
Oh joys arise.
Oh no.
I'm getting a detonate. I actually have lethal here.
Oh wow. Really? Oh yeah, Hellfire, fair enough. Nice. Hellfire lethal. Okay. So we'll switch to something else.
Yeah.
So, we can try the Angry, I guess. I think that Mechs is probably pretty solid against the Angry.
You can also try maybe a green list, like a counter.
Can try. I think this one will be a pretty straightforward matchup, right?
I mean, I do have to set up for a big detonate clear.
Oh, we can try it. I'll just play a Beastmaster.
Sure. Ones are a nuisance for me. Yeah, I'll just have to try and go for a very combo heavy 2-turn kill setup.
Oh, there's Emissary in this. Oh.
Emissary? I thought you were playing Beastmaster.
Yeah, I think I swapped around the cards a little bit. Okay, we don't need Grove Guardian and we don't need Grove Caller. Okay. This deck matchup looks impossible. Yeah. Okay. But we do get a turn 1 play.
Fair, that's an Emissary.
We go for the funky land setup. Okay. We have a living willow collector. Setting up another aggressive land.
Yeah, I'm really getting aggressive here.
Straight into the cannon carrier. Okay. So this is expensive, but I don't have too much of a choice here. I just go for Stalker.
You can Stalker it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fine using the Stalker like that.
And now how do I answer this guy? We could block the collection potentially, if I'm afraid of that, or we can try to get this emissary going into a more aggressive spot with that center line. I feel like if I just sidestep the willow, you probably just take the collection here. So
probably, yeah.
I could block. I think this will be fine. And now I'm gonna patch up this right side. I think you can't really airbot this efficiently due to this cannon carrier being locked down.
Not really, no.
But this also allows my emissary to get more aggressive. Also gives you more ground shaker value though.
Yeah. I'll take every shaker value I can get here. I have to.
Okay. So shaker clears are not looking fantastic. We can try to get a couple extra stats with the emissary, just slapping in. Currently that shaker is gonna hit into willow, I guess. Yikes. Emissary is not looking good. Right, this Tyrian Golem does become 6 power at least, I guess, so we could go for this setup with the Ground Shaker. Actually, I think we might have to protect the 4/4 now.
Protecting the 4/4?
Well, if you step in, I can trade with the 3/3 maybe. Okay, let's just go over on this side. It'll be fine. Could have even fed the 4/4, I guess.
Oh, this is awkward. Just a bit awkward.
Finds the Wrath, yeah. Oh dear.
Yeah, but my follow-up is really bad. It would have been much easier if I had one more Faeria.
Right. Okay, let's draw. Oh my god, go away, emissary. Okay, let's just feed an emissary.
Ugh.
Oh, nice top deck though. Well, kind of. 4/6 Stalker. That's not gonna help. So we need to clear this. I'm one shy of playing the other emissary plus the golem, unfortunately. So maybe it is just Stalker coming down.
Yeah, it's probably good enough because I'm not representing enough damage here.
So Tyrion Golem plus Stalker. Six. Yeah, you're off of Grand Shaker. I think we can do it this way. Wait. No, wait, I wanted the... Okay. Yeah, I guess I wanted the Beastmaster to trade.
Alright.
Yeah, I think the Stalker needed to hit the... I guess it doesn't matter. I need 2 shots on this Captain anyways.
Yeah, you do. Can't get around that.
Let's run 7. Draw. Is that Runin in? Wait, what? Why? I know I'm running Aridin in this list, so I'm not sure why there's a Runin in here. Interesting. Alright. Okay. Well, we'll get our Beastmaster value. Pass for now.
Takes the pass.
Alright. Not a lot of pressure. I'll just use double neutrals to slowly walk towards you. And that will be the plan.
Fair. Oh no. I drew the second copy of Gift of Steel.
Oh.
Ugh. Not a great feeling.
Yeah, Captain's got great stats, but if you thought his upside was an upside, you're horribly mistaken.
I think that's it. I don't have a ton. Like I have Carrier here, but it's probably not enough.
Yeah, that's fair. And yeah, so I think the green matchup is pretty simple. Just dump a bunch of
Even though
stats, right?
This is quite a lot of damage, right?
That's a lot of damage. Oh my god.
Yeah.
8 damage to that Tyrion Golem. That's so much damage. Okay. I lost my ancient boar value. Whoops. Always do
Well,
that. I don't even know if I want it though.
that's probably fine.
I need to draw. Oh.
Oh, my shaker. Yeah. So what I could have done differently this game is I could have maybe I should have also played the carrier a turn later. Though it does pay off greatly if you don't have the stalker there.
Right.
We can do that again.
I think my list is trash, but hey, that's a good mix for a more even matchup. It is still green.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
As soon
It's
as
just
you drop a
stats.
willow, yeah. 1-7.
Yeah. And yeah.
We can also call it after that.
Yeah, I am starting to get a little drained from the day.
Yeah, sorry. We've been going on for so long.
It's been a bit. It's been a bit.
It's been a while. See, I'm just waking up. I'm starting my day, and you're in the depths of late night Faeria.
Yeah, time zones definitely a thing.
Yeah.
So we'll drop.
Let's quickly play this one out. I don't wanna bother you too long.
Oh, I'm not bothered. Don't worry. I also.
You're not right now, but you will be.
Oh dear. I think a couple people have asked me why I haven't been playing ladder very much recently.
Yeah.
Big reason to that is due to just a lot of the veteran players have kind of stopped playing, right? Faeria to me is still an excellent game, but when there's no updates, it can be a little bit boring for some of the veteran players. They stop playing a little bit, move on to other games with more exciting new endeavors going on. And so that leaves the ladder with a lot of more newer players, which is excellent to see, but it is a little bit difficult to get good content out of that and enjoyability, you know.
Yeah. It's also more fun to play with someone you know.
Yeah, so something like this, it's a lot more enjoyable.
Also more challenging usually, because on ladder you'll rarely get to talk in depth about all these different lines.
Definitely, yeah. We're gonna get a little bit greedy here, I think, and go for a double Beastmaster.
Oof. That is a bit greedy, yeah. I agree.
But I think we can get around it, even if you develop Airbot. We're just gonna attack on more and more stats. Not that the extra... Well, the extra stat matters with our 5 HPs, right? Because we get out of that... we get into an odd-numbered threshold. Oh. Yeah, we'll just drop this.
Yep.
That is not an odd-numbered threshold, but...
It is not. Boy. Oh boy.
Oh boy, oh wow.
Yuck. I guess you want to go here.
Another fairy. Ooh. Let's take a draw. Let's feed this and see what we find. Okay, this allows me to bring my Beastmaster potentially to safety in case this is going to be flame bursted. And we continue to slowly walk up, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Could just dump Willow over here.
Ugh. Not a great prospect for me. Boof.
Boof.
I'll force a hit.
Force a hit?
What is this technology? Unheard of.
Wow. Alright, I guess collections don't really matter that much here. For you.
Yeah, 21 Faeria for me.
That was a lot. Well, could do something like this, I guess. Oh, we open up that... No. Okay. I also have 15.
But you have a better board.
I do have a better board.
Fairies.
I do have a better board, yeah. Okay, we'll go for the hit anyways.
Boop.
Booped.
Oh.
Booped again.
The double boop.
The double boop. Always hoping this game will have a resurgence. Been playing since 2017. Nice. It's around the time that I started too, I think.
It's just perfect, isn't it?
Ooh.
God.
Oh, we're on Aurora's stream.
What do I do? I can go left side here. I can also go right side. I'm not really collecting left side. In the long run, at least.
Yeah, we all hope for this game's resurgence.
Yeah. I really would like a Kenkare here. That'd be nice.
Yup.
Yup.
Yup. I'll go here.
More clusters.
More clusters. Take all the value trades you want.
My part.
I guess we'll develop an aggro land. Oh, do you want more clusters? I'll give you more clusters.
Where is my shit? I need it. Okay.
Oh, look at this juicy 4-man clear detonate.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. I can make this work. I have the technology. Well, actually I don't. I don't have the land's technology yet.
Until we learn how to terraform, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah. But it's not terrible, like certainly not great, but it's also not terrible. Poof. Is that not enough? Okay, I see something. I spy with my little eye.
The shaker.
The shaker.
Opening up men, opening up men. Oh, no detonate.
Yes. Not yet. Not yet.
Oh, fair enough. Flame burst. Oh.
Oh, getting fancy.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
He finds the
Fancy
line.
schmancy. Found a line. I'm not sure if it's the line. It's a line.
Doesn't quite take out that Grove Guardian.
Nope. Because now I have to pray. Oh, yes.
Oh. Oh my. Well, that is certainly lines. Huh.
Look at that.
Wow. It's pretty
Wow.
Well,
Sadly, the Beastmaster is still there.
yeah, the
I
Beastmaster's
would have had a chance.
Beastmaster's gonna help me come back, or like stay alive.
Yeah, yeah. Because otherwise, there might have been a world where I use my other Flame Burst and then maybe connect to face.
Mm.
Oh, Living Willow as well. That's good.
Yeah, the living and on 8 HP, really strong.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait, was that supposed to go aggressive? Maybe. Perhaps.
Perhaps. Who knows?
It doesn't make a difference though. 10 is still 2-turn lethal. I don't think it makes a difference.
Huh. Okay. I do have another detonate there. That's a fortunate top deck for me.
Mmm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, actually, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I'll do it this way around. Continue to pray.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's a nice
You have
top deck
6
over
Faeria
here.
though, and you're having
Yeah.
Aradon in play.
Yeah, the Aridon's nice.
But yeah, if I had a second detonate maybe, like last turn, where I went for the AoE, I might have been able to salvage something.
Right.
Maybe.
I don't know if I want to relieve the face pressure or go for the... I guess we relieve the face pressure. I mean, we're in a spot where we can come back on board pretty easily. If we get that feed.
Feed for feed.
Feet.
I am doing quite the clock myself though.
You are.
At least I'm pretending I am. What was your last stalker?
Yeah, I think so. Ooh.
And you've already played 2 Grove Guardians, right? And 3 Willows, what? Right?
Possibly. 4-1-8.
Yeah, I think 2 Grove, 2 Willows.
I'm one shy.
Oh, actually, you played all 3, right? Because you fed one earlier.
Did I feed one? I can't remember.
Oh, or was it that last game? I think you fed one to step back the Beastmaster.
Perhaps. Okay, that's not good.
Yeah, pretty sure. So, actually, that makes it a bit more manageable for me.
Yeah,
At least
fair.
on paper.
Yeah. Ooh, I've got 2 options. If you get a Flame Burst, this one option's not great.
Okay.
If you got a Flame Burst, that option's not great. This one... Oh, Flame Burst is bad in both cases, actually. Right. So... I guess we go for the least devastating option with Flame Burst, which might be this one.
Okay.
Wait, that's Cypher's Wrath. No. I thought. Uh-oh.
Luckily, I do have both. So.
Okay. I thought that was gonna be on 3 HP for some reason.
No. Guess I don't step into range. Oh, look at that! I have lethal.
Oh, plus the Flame Burst, nice. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I played a little bit too trigger
Too
happy that
loosely,
game. But that is okay.
You wanted to showcase the oddball mech win, I guess.
Exactly. We gotta show all the support for Mech in this video here.
Yeah. See, still concerned with content.
Exactly. So yeah.
Oh, that's gonna be a banger YouTube video.
A banger.
At least 1K viewers.
If this video gets 1K likes, I'll eat my own tongue.
Yeah.
Alright.
And you can even make yourself unpopular by saying smash that like and subscribe button, guys.
Smash that like and subscribe button with all the energy left in my lungs. Yeah. And I hope you enjoyed the
well rest.
Hope you guys enjoyed the mech list or the mech discussion here. And if you have any questions, if you missed the stream, you can let us know in the comments. I'm sure Lizard would be happy to answer.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to mech at work.
To mech at work? Yeah, okay.
Okay. I'll see myself out now.
Yes. And if you guys have any decks or archetypes you're interested, leave a comment or a chat.
I'll put them in the comments and then
put them in the comments and like and subscribe. Yes. Yes. And yeah, let us know how the format's going as well. The podcast format's definitely something interesting. I don't know if it works super well with the actual matches, but the discussion at least it works with, I hope. I'll play it back in my non-sleepy moon brain and see how that goes.
Yeah. Talking was had. Yeah.
Yeah. Alright, chat. Thanks a lot for joining. Thanks, Lizard, for joining. And see you in the next one.